phone call is a child, and they're calling the police, and the child is telling us that dad killed mom. And you hear a man crying in the background. And what the kid heard was their dad killing their mom. But the reality is that their dad found the creature, this thing, already killed their mom and then shot them. Or shot at the monster, who then fled, right? So, from the kid's perspective, the dad is what did it. But you, the caller, the person sending it, you don't know if the kid is real. You don't know if the dad is real. You don't know if any of what you're hearing is real.
Hello everyone, hopefully you're having a wonderful day so far. Today we are doing some game dev, something we haven't gone into for a good 4 months now. Can you believe it? And I'm so excited to get back into it. For those that don't know, I am developing my own horror game called Last Call, a 911 operator indie game that, making my first game. And it was supposed to be a short and sweet 3-month process, but here we are nigh a year later and still very much in the beginning stages of it. So if you enjoy watching some game dev, if you like watching me flounder around, or even just spend a good amount of hours relearning everything that I just learned, then I think this is the video just for you. So sit back, relax, get some drinks and some snacks, and I'll see y'all in a second. Hello. How are y'all doing today? Hopefully well. Let's turn this up a little bit more. And there we go. I think it's because the last music we were dealing with was too loud. How you doing, Bear? Good. Glad to hear it. Today, I'm excited for today. We haven't touched game dev in what feels like forever at this point. I've really been missing it. And originally I was like, oh, is it worth doing it once a week? But y'all voted on it. Y'all said yeah, let's do it once a week. Better once a week than 0 times a week, I suppose. Which is true. I don't know how many of y'all were here for when we were doing game dev stuff. I think most of you were. But I imagine a decent amount of y'all haven't seen this. Hey Dark, how you doing? I bet you're excited that we're gonna go essentially full duck this playthrough, unless people start changing the outfit. I definitely need to update the duck just from the fact of... Oh, it was? No! Well, I don't see any drop frames on my end. Yeah, it has. I think it's been... a good... Hold on, actually, we have VODs for a reason. Let me check. If I were to look at our VODs and be like, okay, well, what was the last game dev? Our last game dev was... That can't be right. That can't be right. I have May 17th. That's not right. I disagree. That's not real. That's not a real thing. 11th of October, maybe? Yeah, mid-October. Early mid-October is when we did it. That is weird. That is odd. So yeah, I bet. I imagine you're never going to let Mama Dodo ever go, or not Mama Dodo, the duck Dodo ever get put away during spring cleaning. So it's true. It's very true. during the game dev duck costume, and from there we did the army, and that's what started it. That's the first domino. Now, I hope you're not anticipating too much progress today, because we've been out for a while. So a lot of it's going to be me trying to get my bearings of like where we are, where do we want, what are we currently doing. Yeah, I believe it. I believe that there's no way this costume is going to change. It does need to be updated only in the aspect of like it's too big, so we need to bring it back down. Hey Nomo, how you doing? Hopefully well. In fact, let's go ahead and switch it up. We have 2K and I'm ready to spend it all. I bet. Let's make Mama Dodo a little smaller. There we go. There we go. That's a little better. Worse than usual, even though the usual is horrible. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully us doing some game dev today will kind of brighten your day a bit. But if it's mid, well, almost exactly the month or the day, so about a week after. So it's November, December, January, February. It's been 4 months since we've done any game dev. Which is, if we did game dev in March, so it would be April, May, June, July, August, September, October. So after 7 months of game dev, we took a 4-month break. So it's a hot minute. And things might be broken, because we updated this to the new Godot version. So we have to also kind of check to make sure that things are working as intended. Alright. So, for those, is there anyone who has no idea what this game is about? Like, not a clue. Or even the name of it. Like, what is even that we're doing today? So, Nomo, well, you better add the Duck Army flag in the game. Was that one of your emote things? Recommendations? Oh, no, wait. This is the army flag in this game. I know y'all wanted me to put a lemon in the game for some weird reason. I'll consider it. We're already planning on putting Mama Dodo in the thing as kind of like a you click it and it makes a squeaky sound. I don't see why it wouldn't also be in a duck costume. Maybe even a little flag that says Duck Army on it. I don't see why not. And then they're just like, is that a duck wearing a duck costume? And then they're like, wait, no, that's a dodo wearing a duck costume. Anyway, so this game is called Last Call. It is a horror game. It is a 911 operator horror game where your town is being taken over by mimics or imposters or whatever terminology that I don't think we ever decided on a particular one, but people that it sounds like people on the phone, but they're not actually people. There's a flag that has a dodo duck costume flag. I'll consider it. But so the long and short of it is that you need to figure out. The operator was a lieutenant from the Dark Army. You have to figure out if the person on the other side is a person or one of these things. And the way you would react to that call would be different depending on what you think it is. Yeah. So let's pull up sound. Let's see here. Do we have... Okay, great. So it doesn't show. So we have to switch to display. We might keep display up for now. But this is... Oh, dang it. That's fine. I don't know why it does that. Okay. So this is our last call. This is the very beginning of it. So here is what we currently have. We have the ability to zoom in. So this is our keypad. So I'll go in order. You click around at the different objects to zoom in and interact with it. We have this, which is the phone. We'll have like on the bottom here, like caller ID. This is how we answer the phone. Then we have the screen. This shows the map of all the buildings and houses in the area. We are currently located here. This is where we are. The spread, the first house that gets taken over by these things is in the top left. And it will slowly kind of chain and take over different areas, different houses, anything that's blue is a house. Anything that's kind of like that green is a special location. So like churches, schools, hospitals, parks. Hey Piranha, how you doing? Things of that nature, where if they get taken over, you know, it will extra stuff will happen, right? And tired, we'll sit back, relax while I stumble on. I'm excited to get working on this game again. However, I'm needing to catch up to what I was doing because it's been 4 months since we've touched the game, as well as trying to remember how to do the things that we're doing because it's been 4 months. But yeah, so it will spread throughout the city, and then once it gets to where you're located, you lose, right? And it's a fight against. It's been 4 months, yeah. Our last stream for game dev was October 11th. So October, November, December, January, February. It's been 4 months since we've touched this, which is crazy, right? Yeah. But man, we didn't, like, one of the things I was really disappointed in was that we didn't even get to like the fun part yet. Where in my opinion, the fun part is like writing the scripts and then voice acting the calls. To me, that is where we really imbue the story and enrichness of it all. Like, I remember one. Yeah, exactly. And like that's one of the reasons why I like to stream this with y'all, is because like y'all have some really interesting perspectives, like interesting ideas that would be good. So like using like it's an immediate feedback from y'all as far as how things feel, how things look, how things sound. Did I cross a line? Could it be pushed a little further? Like it's very important to do that. And it's so don't get me wrong, a lot of this is just being like, I don't know what an integer is. Like it's like it's like, why does this work? Why is this not working? But it's also really fun to just try to figure it out. And it's I want to show that it can be messy, and that even if I can do it, anyone can do it. you know what I mean? But there is one scene that still sticks to my brain that I absolutely love. And it was the phone call is a child. And they're calling the police. And the child is telling us that dad killed mom. And you hear a man crying in the background. And what the kid heard was their dad killing their mom. But the reality is that their dad found the creature, this thing, already killed their mom and then shot them. Or shot at the monster, who then fled, right? So from the kid's perspective, the dad is what did it. But you, the caller, the person sending it, you don't know if the kid is real. you don't know if the dad is real. You don't know if any of what you're hearing is real. And like, so you have to make a decision. Yeah. I like playing with the red herrings, playing with the idea where these people, like we've made the decision that even though the direction of the spread is going to be semi-random in like depending on location, thus the little red circle is the choices of the spread, I believe is what we were at. The location, the people in these houses are stagnant. They are the same people. And there are 4 levels of difficulty regarding, let's see if I remember this off the top of my head. There's 4 layers of difficulty determining if the person on the other end is real or not. The first is consistent voice. So if the voice goes up and down like this, like if it sounds very irregular, it's probably not real, and then you flag it. The second one is sentence structure. So they speak normally like they took the complete voice, but they don't fully understand the language. And because they don't fully understand the language, they're not putting it together in the right way. So it's just like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense of what they're saying. Like it sounds like an AI. It sounds like a bad AI, right? The tier 3 is that everything sounds consistent and the structure of the sentences are sound, but what they're saying doesn't fit the context of what's happening. Like, for example, like, oh, someone broke into my house. I just came back from walking my dog, but it's like 3 a.m. No one's walking their dog at 3 in the morning. Or it's like, I just got back from the tanning salon and it's like 2 a.m. It's like, what are you talking about? Right? It's like, why are you doing that? They understand the sentences, but they don't know when to use certain words. And then the tier 4, which is the hardest one, which is why we're keeping it as like stagnant, is the fact that you have to have context clues in order to know if the person is lying. Like once you get to tier 4, you get to the point where it's almost like you're trying to find the person trying to trick you. It's almost like there's a person on the other end of the phone trying to trick you. One guy who will always be real and just give the player some security and then take it away from them. Ooh, taking away security. That's a pretty cool idea. Like a consistent thing, but you get to take it away. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind, Dark. That's a pretty good perspective. But in order to know tier 4, you have to understand these people. You have to know their lives. You have to know that James in this house is a single father. So if you have a call from their kid saying that their mom just got killed, you know that's wrong because they don't have a mom. There is no mom in this house. And you know that because you were given the context clues by random bits of false calls. So in order to kind of like fill in that kind of that background stuff, is I deemed it a chatty grandma. She just calls you and just long-winded, just wants to spill the coffee of everything that's happening in the neighborhood. But while talking with them, you're not able to, save people's lives. So most people are just like, get this person off the damn phone as fast as possible so I could keep on playing this game. But what she gives you is important information about the neighborhood in context clues that will then be pertinent later in the game, which as it gets more and more difficult naturally, as these things learn the language and behaviors more accurately, then is needed in order to make the correct decisions, because it's going to be very difficult to tell otherwise. So And as far as what these things are, we're avoiding description of any of this. I'd be bad at this game. Well, it's a game that's meant to, like, you're meant to make mistakes and then learn from it. Like, it's designed with that in mind of, like, you're probably not going to do well the first time you do it, and it's okay. You just play it again and then you do better. And to kind of lean into that, this game, you can't win this game. It is a battle. It's a battle of attrition. You can only last as long as possible, and then I'm considering maybe like leaderboards or something like that. But like, you want to last as long as possible, which also creates kind of a unique perspective from speedrunners, because then you have to find a way to lose as fast as possible, and we should implement systems in place to make it so that you can lose quickly as well as survive longer. Hey Ratty, how you doing? It's been a hot minute, but we're making more game dev, and it's been 4 months. Can you believe it? I'm just kind of going over. Hell yeah. Hopefully you're spending money that you're able to spend. As a fellow card collector, I also, granted, you know, I've been good for the last little bit, but it's been tough. The restraint has been tough. Oh, I'm gonna worry. But, so the idea the monsters, that's right. We are not going to use any descriptors. No physical descriptions of what these things look like. Hell yeah, Ratty. Because I want people who play this game to have an idea, their own version of what these things look like. But the implication that I'm giving for it, and the kind of quote-unquote lore about these things, is that these are monsters, creatures, that have always hunted people and have used our own social nature against us. So it mimics. So we're talking, you hear voices calling your name in the middle of the night in the Appalachian mountains. Like, that's the level that I'm kind of diving into, right? Macaroons, I'm having a good day. Ooh, it sounds like you're having an amazing day. Did you bring enough for the class? But specifically with the mindset of, they are the reason why there is such an overlap between cave systems and missing people in the United States. So with environmental changes, with the drastic growth of human civilization, this is kind of like a semi-invasion of these things that have now come out of the caves and started taking over this small town that originally the main character got into an accident, and they were hospitalized, and now coming back to work being a 911 operator bound to a wheelchair. But she was followed by one of these things. The legal necromancy. I did see it. I thought it was very interesting. Perspective of it. I thought it was cool. I remember us talking about it at one point as far as the legality of necromancy and consent and all that. But I think it's really cool as far as just like sanitation wise and things like that kind of thing. So it was definitely an interesting watch. Thank you for sharing. But there's like a life cycle when it comes to the hunting pattern of this creature. So the first step is stalking. They pick a person and then they stalk their prey. Second, they learn and they kind of just watch until they fully understand their behavior, their language, how they speak, etc. And then once they have enough information, they ambush. Once they ambush, take them out, kill them. Step 4, they then use what they've learned to then call in as many other people as they can and then ambush each one of those when they arrive. That's their hunting style. And then once they feel that it's like lightened up, it's things starting to trickle, they're starting to understand, their prey starting to understand not to go there anymore, they won't kill the last one, and instead restart the cycle over again by following the last person who arrives, not killing them, and then when they go back to their original location, it starts over again. So that's essentially what happened here with the main character, where the main character was involved in a quote-unquote accident and was followed by one of these things, and then everyone in town is now being hunted accordingly. So this house over here is actually the main character's house, that because they were dropped off by, I'm going to say brother? Like, I'm thinking maybe family member. When the family member went back after dropping them off at work, they were taken out, and then now things are starting to spread. And we have multiple families, we have teenagers, we have parents, and we have everyone interacting with everybody else and having certain kind of relationship with each other. We've come up with the idea of certain neighbors hating each other. So like, how would a neighbor, let's say these two people, right? Let's say this neighbor knows that this neighbor has been sleeping with their wife. They know it's been happening. They've been prepping for a divorce. They're trying to build a case. They're getting everything good. They see that monsters have been coming around, killing people. How do you think this guy's gonna react? Do you think he might go over to his neighbor's house and unlock their door? Is he going to report that his neighbor got attacked by a monster? Probably not. Right? He's probably going to be like, interesting. Thank you for the follow, Binkley. Appreciate it. Honestly, just give the community that's going to form around this. How you doing? Give a very vague description and let them make fan art and take the one that you like and make it canon. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make anything canon, but that's the idea. The idea is very little description of these creatures, and I want people to go ham on what they think these things look like. Only what they sound like. That's what I really want to focus on, because this is a very audio-heavy game, which we have to think of accessibility abilities to compensate, right? How you doing, Binkley? How you doing on this fine day? I haven't done game dev in 4 months, so I'm kind of going into depth as far as what it's about and trying to find my footing. So today might be a little bit lighter on... Good. I was gonna say, you wouldn't happen to know Vive Gaming, would you? Wait, you are Vive Gaming, aren't you? Yeah! How you doing, my guy? It's been forever. How's been your game dev journey? It's been forever, my guy. I'm assuming you changed your name within the last 4 months. Or unless this is a new account. I was gonna say, like, I remember Vive Gaming coming in with all the vibes, and I was like, this guy might be related to Vive Gaming. For people who haven't met Vive Gaming, we met when we were, I don't even know what month it was, but it was during game dev. Quit it since I couldn't code, and yeah, it was sad, but I'm back and forgotten my Gmail password. Understandable, my guy. I mean, there are ways, if you don't know how to code, Isn't Unreal Engine 5 codeless? I think it might be codeless, because I think they use the connection thing over actual code, or like raw code. So that might be something you might want to consider, because I know there are game dev tools specifically for people who have weakness for coding. Potato PC can't handle it. Yeah, Unreal Engine's really they like to tax on their computers. Okay. But yeah, no, I totally get it. I got a had grid picture. For your Twitch, gotcha. But yeah, no, welcome. If you ever want to try to pick it back up or something, as I also scrounge around and try to learn coding again, we can grow and develop together. We'll be able to get through it. If I can do it, you can do it. I believe in us. But I'm just trying to think if there's anything that I missed. Well, let me open up, because I have a document of not all of it, but Idealist. Where is Last Call Hub? Here it is. Hell yeah, my guy. Okay. Oh, we have the Easter eggs. So we currently on Easter eggs we have Mama Dodo Squeaky Rubber Duck. We have GoldenEye Spying. I forget who recommended that one. El Joshi and horror kind of vibe. Might have been Luca. Interaction with Dodo plushie in game where multiple clicks and patterns change their outfit. That was a good recommendation. I liked that. Doing a ritual with a Dodo will win the game in a funny way. Secret ending. That one was a maybe. Water dropping noises from a lemon, maybe. Yeah, because y'all were obsessed with trying to add a lemon to the game for some reason. Don't know. I still don't know why. Oh my gosh, I had so many stuff. Okay, hold on. Sorry for the brightness warning here. Bang. All right. So this was to-do list. Imposter spread. We're on imposter spread. This was the development roadmap. We were planning on being done in July, by the way. Let me tell you. Yeah, what's gonna happen? We are currently on step 6. Creating the imposter spread. That's what we're doing. And it was about this was scheduled for us doing it for 8 hours a week. Because it would have been 2 4 hours. Welcome back, Nomo. I'm kind of showing off like trying to get my bearings by going over all the Excel sheets that we were doing, but I wanted to show you that my original was this was going to be done in July last year. We started in May, and then it was gonna the plan was it was only gonna be like a 3-month game, but I didn't anticipate that it would take longer because I don't know what I'm doing. Have you ever had world building block? Of course. All the time. All the time. You just kind of have to take in more and more references and inspirations to try to kind of get over it. Similar to creativity, where it's about breathing in and out. Usually, for me, block is because I haven't breathed in a long time, aka taken in inspirations from others. That's okay. It'll come back in time. I believe it. You'll be good. Just try to indulge in things that you really are inspired by. That too. That too. I'm sure that would help. Yeah. Well, it's good to have try to make a structure. World build. So just like you're trying to world build, but you just can't get yourself to do it, right? It's like writer's block, but world building instead of writing. Demo, things to keep an eye on. Oh my god. Persist memory, aka make it so that it's autosave, so if it crashes, people don't lose their progress. Start the game not at full volume. We're going to look into potential... Oh yeah, that's right. We're going to look into the idea of making this a tablet game. Like a screen touch game. Because, or like iPad or whatever. Because, the interaction in this game is so just point and click that there's really no reason not to try to move in that direction. Plus, that would increase accessibility by a lot. Or at least our reach for also including touch screens, not just PCs. My brain chooses to imagine scenarios where I'm in a relationship like comfy and stuff. Well, I think it's okay to explore those ideas and try to get the main reason why you're thinking of them in the first place. And then coming to terms in getting the lesson that your brain's trying to teach you, right? So maybe give it its time and then give it only a certain amount where it's just like, cool, we could think about this, but only for the next week or so. I guess it's kind of, well, it's there for a reason, right? You just don't know the reason yet. So maybe it's a good idea to kind of think through it, you know? Amount of time to make a decision as far as having a timer based around you trying to decide if the person on the other end of the phone is real or not. That was another one that I think we would have that in accessibility settings to turn that on or off. Or kind of make that more flexible. Because I know some people may or may not like it. Well, as for others, they're literally incapable of doing it with the amount of time given, right? Pausing, making time stop being an accessibility option. Need to make the map of town. We already did make the map of town. But I guess it means to fruition. Make certain mistakes drastically increase speed. Think of mechanics that if someone wanted to lose quickly, they can play the game in an entirely new way. Got you. So that's what we were talking about before, as this is a unique game to speedrun, and we want to implement systems to make it so it spreads on. You want them to spread on purpose and the fastest way to end the game, right? So we need to implement stuff where if you mess up, it spreads quicker. And I think one of the things that y'all recommended was like you have to like keep them out from outside of the building, similar to like FNAF, where it's like if they can get in the building, and if you let them in the building, it's an early lose. You're good. You're fine. Like most of the scenarios involve me being hug. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I don't know either, but I think the only person that can figure it out is you. Potential interesting mechanics. Unresponsive resources. Oh, by the way, resources in this game are emergency personnel. So the way that this game is broken down currently is there are policemen, fire truck, ambulances. The policeman is what you need in order to keep the spread from going crazy. Like, as of right now, and we haven't, once we get the spread down, our next thing on the list is proper resource management. Is you need twice as many police as you normally do for a situation if you think it is a fake person. So if it would normally require 1 policeman, you would send 2 accordingly. And then you would send everything else like normal. The ambulances help prevent deaths, and they bring people to hospitals. And then the fire trucks have a unique interaction where normally if you mess up and you think that it's a normal situation, but it's a monster situation, then you lose all your resources that you send there. They die. They get ambushed and they die. But if you send a fire truck, only the firemen will die. They're essentially a second chance. Fire trucks are second chances. Now, you might ask, it's like, well, if that's the case, why don't they just assume that every single call is a monster? And that is because they have limited resources, so that if they react to every single call like it's a monster call, you're not going to have enough policemen to send to every single call. And then those houses will just get taken over. Right? So this is secretly a resource management game. And your decisions based on what to send out and what to try to reserve, and the focus of the horrible decision of who to save, right? Because if you only have enough resources that you could save like this house or this house, and you're like, shit, I can only send to one of these 2 places. But you know that if you lose this house, they get access to the supermarket. They get access to, I forget what this is, but another building. Which then if they get the supermarket, they get access to all these buildings. Like, it could cause a huge bad chain reaction of things going wrong if they get down in this direction. But if you lose this house, it's only these 2. So do you sacrifice these people to protect a much more dangerous domino to fall? And are you willing to make that choice? Because I want these calls and these NPCs to feel like they're real people. That they have feelings, they make decisions, they interact with you. And it's the same for the resources. It's the same for the policemen in the hospitals and the fire truck. I don't think we mentioned this. This is a radio. It doesn't look like it now. But what happens is after you make a decision, I think I got distracted. I didn't finish going through it, and I apologize. But this is the map where you see everything happening, and where you can kind of see where all the buildings are located. And houses taken over will highlight red, which will indicate that quote-unquote inability to call location, right? So let's say, okay, cool, we have the phone, we picked up the call, we know the location, and we made a decision. Well, then we go to here. This is a numpad for a certain combination of numbers. We're going to say this, let's pretend this is police, this is ambulance, this is fire trucks. And I want to send 1 police, 2 ambulance, 1 fire truck. So I hit 1 police, 2 ambulance, 1 fire truck, and then it sends them on the way. So this is how you send the resources to that location. Then you can turn on the radio. And what that radio will do is that it will allow you to listen to the people that you've sent to a location, and you can hear the outcome of what happened. And by outcome of what happened, we're talking about, like, you hear their conversations on their way to the location. You'll hear them going to their location. You'll hear them entering the house or that particular location, and you'll hear if you've made the correct decision or not. But you have to actively hear it, right? Otherwise, what it's just going to be on the screen is they essentially go over there, and then the policeman or the resource will just stay there. They won't be coming back ever, right? And then if you're wondering what this guy is, This guy is going to be almost like our receipt. And this is going to show the history of the decisions that were made. So if you're ever wondering, like, what was the house that you sent someone previous to, if it ended up being a positive or negative situation, you can check here, because just because you lost a house doesn't mean they wouldn't also try to pretend that you didn't save them, right? Or if a location was attacked before, would that mean that, is it more or less likely that a monster had taken over that location, right? So it's just a place to be. Also, if you happen to like leave the game and then come back, this will give you an opportunity to kind of like catch up to what you were doing before the game closed for whatever reason, right? So resources in this case are the emergency vehicles. So become unresponsive, but potentially could partially recovered if properly approached. It's the idea that maybe we can send resources to a place that we have lost people, that we can then bring them back. Not like alive, but we at least get the vehicles back or something, right? Hiring civilians at resources is an idea. That further down the line is like, well, would people step up and want to be a police officer? Would we be able to utilize the people that we're trying to keep alive? Let's say our resources are dwindling considerably and we're not able to catch up with everything. Could we utilize the people and kind of use them as a temporary stopgap of resource sending, right? Can we use the people we're protecting as a resource? Beef, right. This is the one I mentioned before about the neighbor hated another neighbor, so they purposely sabotaged them. Which I thought having those kind of like interesting interactions and interesting relationships with each other would arise, I think, it's almost like there's different rule sets in a way at different parts of the map that just come naturally just from human interaction. And I think that also adds a lot of depth to the characters of themselves, right? Let's see here. Overstimulation, make an option to allow one caller decision at a time. Yeah, so like the idea is that the game ramps up in difficulty because more and more of these creatures show up over time, and your calls become more and more frequent until eventually you're not able to keep up and you start losing houses like faster and faster until you lose the game. Like that's essentially the difficulty curve. It's just like there will be a breaking point at some point. That breaking point might be different for other people, for everyone, because just from skill level, but there will be a point where it's too much for you. And this accessibility option kind of really breaks a core part of what makes this game the game. So we would have to tackle it in a specific kind of way where we make it clear, like, hey, if this is how you want to play it, that's fine. But it's not going to feel the same. Like, this is not by design, which I think a lot of accessibility options, that's what they say, is that you could turn this on if you want, but that's like, this is not what makes the game good, right? Playback of audio logs of what happened to help the player keep track of progress. This is we'll also probably mix almost like a quote-unquote voicemail along with the receipt, so that way you can, maybe if we click on a receipt, it will play the recording of the audio. That could be kind of interesting in case we miss the or maybe the radio, where it keeps track of it all. Different colors for conditions of resources between available, en route, arrived, and not available. That's just a good ease of use thing. Two-way radio that players can hear the results of the decisions. We talked about that. Once multiple resources are dispatched, the feedback will overlap, giving the feeling of chaos and disorder. This one is I'm not 100% sure on, because that's a lot of audio overload. like that could easily get to that point where it's just like there are 6 people talking at the same time. It can get overwhelming, right? I think if anything, I don't know, because I like the idea of you starting to lose control of everything, like all your things are going wrong, and then you just have this moment where everyone's overlapping each other as they're all panicking and they're trying to figure what's going on, and their people are dying on the radio, and it just like peaks, like it really adds that kind of level of stress to it. But I can also see that being really overwhelming for a lot of people. So I'm not 100% on this. Once we get to the point where we are designing the call structure, because right now we're designing the imposter spread, right? Once we are doing the call structure, we'll kind of play around with that idea. I think right now we'll do it one at a time, but we may play around with it more. Hey Lex, how you doing? Right? The lore is that we were recently integrated computer-aided dispatch utilizing old tech, aka it's very difficult to use. So we're talking like early 90s. Or not early 90s, but like 90s, early 2000s almost, but we're still using like early 90s tech because they refuse to update it because it's a government facility. So that's really, in my opinion, accurate. Think about how the resources will interact with each other. So this is where it's like, if I have two police cars out and one of them goes to we made a bad call, they end up getting attacked over the radio. How would other police officers respond hearing to their companions, their friends being attacked at a location? Right? And in my opinion, they would then leave and or alter course to support them regardless of your input. Or at least some people would. Maybe others wouldn't. Like maybe the more grizzled, experienced ones would be able to hold themselves back because they know that if they turned around, people would die. And that they themselves might die. And they may already be too late. Whereas the more impulsive young police officers, they might immediately be like, I'm going to go save these people because I'm a police officer and they're my friends. And I'm not going to just sit here and let them die, right? And so we want to play around with the idea that the resources, these emergency personnel, each of them have their own personality. And one of the, I don't know if I've written it down here, but I remember coming to the conclusion that each character has their own like storyline in its own way as far as resources, as far as like the emergency personnel goes, because at the end of the day, at the end of the game, there will always be one last guy left, right? There will always be one last one. And so I want a naturally evolving character arc of each of those resources, each of those people, because it creates a very natural flow of you get to see how this person responds being the last one alive. And this also creates a unique scenario where the player really like certain people. They like certain people in certain houses. They like certain people in certain for responders. So they may not send certain police officers to locations that they're not confident in because they like them so much and they want that guy or that girl to get to the end of the game. Or vice versa. there may be people that they hate, right? Now we have the opportunity to create characters that people hate strictly because that like is like cool. Now they want them to die quicker. Now it's like, I'm not sure about this area, send what's his face, like now we have a little mixture. Now we have a mixture of characters that people might like, mixture of characters might hate, and we'll try to make it as ambiguous as we can, aka we're not gonna have like a puppy kicker and then a person who adopted 9 children be within the same decision group, because like obviously people are gonna hate one and then love the other. But instead it's you love certain, we want like a more ambiguous where they have a little bit of mixture, whereas just like we have a puppy kicker, but I can't think of a good thing to offset kicking puppies, but like a really good positive trait. And then we have the really good positive trait of people who like took in like 9 orphans, but they did it mostly for the tax write-off, right? So it's like, oh, so which positives and negatives, but they love cats and help stray cats. Yeah, exactly, right? Whereas like, oh, the reason they kick puppies is because they have a trauma and phobia with dogs, but they are absolutely kind to all other animals, right? Yeah, exactly. So like, so it's just like, oh shit, but I don't want to, do I not like the puppy kicker? But they love cats and I love cats, but I also love puppies. But like that kind of emotional turmoil of the weight of people's assumption and likeness of people would vary, because for some people who also don't like dogs would be like, I don't see what the problem is here. They love cats, I love cats, we're on the same side. Whereas other people, it's just like, I don't like cats and I love dogs, this person can go die, right? So you have those kind of mixture of like grumble, like very, very dry, angry, almost retired police officer kind of style, but they have a soft spot to the young, like the new cadet that just came in, right? I'm kind of thinking almost similar to like mouthwashing in a way, where you just kind of have this old grumbled old fart and then just like puppy-eyed happy-go-lucky guy, and they have like this interesting interaction, but they're like so usually you love each one individually, but I don't want people to want to kill them. I mean, we'll still have bad things in which people would still make that assumption, but I want this to be a difficult decision. That's kind of the point. And not difficult in the sense of just like mechanically difficult. Who they should want to kill. All right, we're gonna do a ad break real quick, and I will see y'all in a second. And welcome back. So, I mean, we explained pretty much the overall game, but we didn't explain why this game is called The Last Call. So, the reason this game is called The Last Call is because at the end of the game, you know what? We'll start from the beginning. Well, not the beginning of the game, but I'll lead into it. So, there are 4 coworkers, which is we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have we have one person who, when things go wrong, he bails. Things start picking up, people start dying, monsters have been confirmed. This person said, bro, fuck this. I'm out of here. This is just a job. This is just a paycheck. I'm not gonna be here for this nonsense. And everyone's just like, you have a responsibility. You are a 911 operator. You have to be here for the people. And he said, he's pretty much on the opinion of like, nah. Nah, I'm gonna live. I refuse to stay here and die. So he bails. And every time somebody leaves the 911 operating facility, the calls increase in frequency. Because you divided the work by 5. If you go from 5 to 4, you've increased your frequency of calls that you have to take in by 5%. Right? You go from 20% to 25%. Then, as things start picking up, you get second person coworker gets a call from their house, from their kid. And their kid is calling to let them know that someone broke in. And she now has to go. And everyone's just like, you know, she very much feels responsible and needs to stay, but she's not going to leave their kid alone. She's not going to just not go home. Even if it's like a trap, even if it was a monster, there's no way that she was not going to go home to their kid. Just in case. And they leave. And unsurprisingly, they don't show up again. And then you have your third coworker. And the third coworker, I believe, did we fully change it? This one, the third one was a little bit difficult. We've kind of gone back and forth on. The original third coworker was that's the one that ends up breaking mentally. After the third coworker leaves when things really start getting bad. So originally it was designed of a person freaking the hell out and then essentially sobbing in the corner. And then now they're not doing any calls and they're just losing their mind. We ended up changing it, I'm still not convinced, to an ex-cop that is now in a 911 operator. Probably got put there, like essentially like, you know those situations where an active cop fucks up and they, instead of firing them, they got essentially been forced to take a desk job. That's essentially what happened here. Whereas just like, he messed up on the force while being active and got put as a 911 operator to just kind of put aside, right? And he's been itching to get back into active duty for a long time. So then, after things get really, really bad, and I think it was when you lose a certain amount of police officers, he will then get up and say, I could do better, more work out there than I can in here, and will leave the call center, but you'll get an extra cop. It's kind of like a give and take kind of situation, where it's like, oh, you're struggling with these resources, you've kind of cannibalized the amount of people that can take in calls, but you do get a resource out of it, right? And then you get the last one. This is the ride or die. This is the one that sticks to you till the end of the game. Like, by your side the whole damn time. I don't know if we're going to make it a love interest. We might imply that this person definitely has feelings for the main character or something, but they are very much a ride or die. It's either going to be childhood friend or best friend or something along the lines of, but they're there. And then near the end of the game, they're going to go to the bathroom and you're going to hear them, the muffle, though it's quiet, you're going to hear them make a few phone calls where they call their loved ones. They call their mom, they call their dad, they call their siblings, and it's their final call. It's them telling them like, hey, we don't know what's happening, but they're not going to make it out. And what the player doesn't know is when that ride or die leaves to make that call, they're replaced. They get ambushed, killed, and replaced. So when they come back, It's not them anymore. And the player doesn't know that. And then when the final buildings get taken over, including the police station, the fire station, and the hospital, and all the power kind of shuts off, none of the computer screens are on, and the calls stop calling. The phone rings one last time. And what is on that phone call, I haven't completely decided on. But it's that moment. That moment where everyone is gone and all hope is lost. And the phone rings one last time. That is why the game is called Last Call. Because it's all building up to that moment. And I want that to be as impactful as possible. And the current plan is that, or the current in-game lore is that the main character lives. I want it to be implied the character lives. I think the character is saved, but the character doesn't want to be saved because they know that wherever they get brought to, the cycle's going to start all over again. Because she has been targeted as the next last survivor of that town. Just like she was targeted as the last survivor of the previous accident. And so that's where this kind of comes in. Where you have the SWAT called in the beginning of the game. Because, like, if things go really bad in a small town, it's usually they contact the closest, nearest big city and have their resources allocated to that small town, right? They kind of are able to do that. And so the idea is what, in this case, they did call and they're expecting people to show up, but regardless of how long you play the game, it won't be until the very end until they show up, right? It's like maybe they had them called after the first emergency personnel death, maybe, because you wouldn't call them straight away. If there was a bunch of people, if there was somebody calling the police station being like, hey, there's a creature trying to get me to open my door, can you send somebody? You're not going to go like, oh my god, I need SWAT team stat. It's like, no, you're going to send policemen over there. They're going to assume that they're high as hell and or drunk and send people over. And then only when that goes bad would you go like, oh, we need more help. And then that's when you would escalate the situation accordingly. Is there any tutorial for 3D third-person movement in camera rotation for Godot? Third-person movement in camera rotation. Unfortunately, only thing I used was two-dimensional, but throw that into Google. There's so many tutorials for Godot. There's none that I'm aware of, but I am 100% positive you can find it on YouTube. I was gonna say like Babish, but I'm like, no, that's cooking, Idealist. Is there not so many? Hold up. Really? Hold on. Let me see. Let me see. Is it really not? Godot 3D third person movement and camera. I see one where it's like a third person. Well, maybe did you try to look for both at the same time? I would just do one at a time. Because I'm seeing, hold on. Because creating a third person camera would probably cause your camera things. And then third person controller for number one. And that's this year. I think try to give those a shot. Even though that's a year old, It should still hopefully work. Because that's when we started making this game that we're making now, right? Give them a shot, but I don't know any off the top of my head. Let's see. Is there anything else that we haven't gone over again? We were talking about assumption of the situation adjacent to the violent. Assumption of the situation would be adjacent to a violent cult. So the idea that it wasn't actual. They didn't believe monsters at first. Instead, they believe that this is an act of a cult. This is a systematic, fanatic group of people that are breaking into people's homes and killing them, right? So a lot of this, they don't believe the monster talk. Oh, I remember what it was. We didn't talk about the news network. So in this game, there is a news network. Specifically, the news network is right here. So, I mean, I already have a character in mind and everything. So, the news anchor here is a guy who is so incredibly frustrated with having to be a news anchor in this middle of nowhere bumfuck town, and just wants to, make a big, that all he needs is one big story to get into the Big Apple, to get into a big city and become a real news anchor. And then all this stuff goes down, right? So there's actually, on what? Dare I ask, on what? I mean, it's your points. Do what you want with them. I'm not gonna tell you not to. The news anchor. So when all this stuff goes down, the news anchor is like, "Oh, we're gonna really make this. We're gonna squeeze everything out of it." And of course, the police station is gonna try to put out an emergency broadcast. So the emergency broadcast is gonna be broadcasted to every single building, and it's gonna be along the lines of, "Don't let anyone in your house, even if you know them. If they sound like on the other end, if you can't visually tell if the person is who is speaking, do not approach. Bunker down, lock all your doors, lock all your windows. If you have any weapons, grab them." Like, very much just like, guys, people are breaking into people's houses and we don't have enough resources to gather you. You need to defend yourself. And then they're going to want to try to put a damper on this as far as spreading too much chaos, etc. Or like, too much information will just spread fear and people will start overreacting. Not overreacting, but reacting, panicking is what I was looking for. But if you lose this location, if this gets if this location gets taken over, suddenly the news are going to start telling you to start trusting people again. They're going to tell you to open the door. It's going to tell you that everything is fine now. And you have to, that's kind of the feeling I want to give for all these important locations, where they all have their own kind of consequence and benefit. The benefit if they're on your side, and consequence if they are not. And then we'll have certain characters in these houses, like Frank, who doesn't like it when the news tried to tell them what to do, right? They're not going to listen to the news. Even if you put out an emergency broadcast, the dude's just like, "Oh, they're overreacting. This is just, I can handle myself," kind of mentality. And then for other people, it's like, "Oh, we're really close to this neighbor, and there's a knock on the door, and it sounds like the other neighbor asking them to be let in, and something happened and they need to open the door, but they have the news network telling them that they can't." Do they open the door? Right? I want to create situations where it feels like they are also making decisions. You're not the only one making a decision here. Because I think that's one of the most frustrating things in a lot of horror games, especially, where horror and RPG fall into this category, where it doesn't feel like anyone else is making decisions but you. Everyone else is just kind of there. But I want to, even though if they aren't necessarily like learning or anything like that, like not all of them will have AI or whatever, but I still want to give the impression, I still want to give the feeling that each one of these has their own personality. And it's like, obviously the person who doesn't believe in the news network wouldn't let anyone in anyway. Even when the news network says let people in, he's going to be like, nah, F you. Y'all could just F off, right? But like, what about people who are who's like, okay, cool, we need to bunker down. What can we do? What about like these people? Or these people? Would they try, like, this is a hardware store. Would they try to drive over to the hardware store? Will they risk it? Will they risk it to go to the hardware store and then they get boarded? How would the people react after they get attacked and they get saved by the policeman? How would they react? How would people react seeing this thing, or maybe not even seeing it, but just having their house broken into? What would they do? How would they move beyond that? Would they stay there, thinking that certainly they wouldn't come back? Or would they forever not feel safe in their home? And if they don't feel safe in their home, where would they go? Do we give out like a community center where people who don't feel safe in their homes, they can go to? And is that place even safe, right? And how would we handle that balance-wise, as if we make a place where they all go to, where you would need less resources to cover it? Would it create a stalemate? Because we don't want stalemates. We want lost situations, but barely lost situations, right? So it's things like this to think about, where we have to pretend that these are people and then think through the idea of how they would react in that situation for every situation. Not every situation of like every possible combination, but like the main ones, aka if they get protected, if they don't get protected, if their house gets broken into, how would they react? So we would probably need to go through and just kind of have like those three covered for the most part. And there was something that I was thinking of that I can't seem to remember off the top of my head. But another quote-unquote event, another call. Actually, two calls. I'll mention two calls that are essentially some of my favorite ideas for this. On the bottom left here is an abandoned industrial complex. Think old coal processing plant or something, right? You get a call from this location. It's a bunch of teenagers that are there smoking and drinking underage, not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And these kids are calling the police because they can't find their little brother that they tagged along. Because the teenager, the kind of like center of the group, was forced to bring their brother along by their parents because they obviously didn't tell their parents correctly where they were going. And they were like, oh, just bring your brother along. That'll be fun. So they brought the brother along, and now they can't find them in the abandoned industrial complex. And you have to really, really fuck up as a teenager to call the cops. You know? Teenagers don't call the cops. They don't call the popo. They don't call the police. And of course, number one thing they're gonna beg you. They're gonna beg you, the main character, not to tell their parents. Because of course they are. Because they're teenagers. Right? I don't get to hang out. So exactly, you wouldn't be caught in this situation, but some teenagers are. And I bet you that there are people your age, Nomo, that would do this. And you might know of people who like, yeah, they would do that. But like the idea of like you have people of all ages all reacting to this really crazy situation in different ways, in different instances, in different locations at the same time, on the same night. By the way, this all happens in one night. It starts around like 6 o'clock in the evening, and then when the sun is coming up, that's when the game ends. And it's not like a timed thing. However long you play this game is however long the night's gonna be. It's not quote-unquote realistic in that aspect, but this isn't like a Five Nights at Freddy's where you go from one night to the next, or 30 Days of Night. This is a one night, people are trying to live through the night situation. And the last call that at least comes up of recent memory, not recent memory, but on top of my head, was the park. I don't remember if the park was here or here. In the park, there was going to be a call where policemen go up to the park and an ice cream truck was crashed into the park. But there's blood, but there's no one there. And so you are listening to the radio of these two cops kind of freaking out. They're kind of freaking out. They're not okay. And in the background of the radio, you hear the ice cream truck song playing as it gets slowly louder as they move closer to the truck. And I love that mental image. And like all these calls, there's no visual. This is all audio, and I want this to be all audio. I want this that you paint the picture mentally of what these people are going through, what these people look like, how they're acting, how they're reacting, the locations, etc. And like, how would people react for the school, the elementary school? Maybe it's like an elementary through high school or something here. This is a small town, right? Like the hardware store, the gas station, the truck stop, the like everything. So the church, and just combining all these different people and different families and throw them into this interaction and have it so they have relationships with each other to some degree, and then just throw our main character and a phone in front of them and be like, cool, now that we know approximately what people would do, let's just let the game kind of build itself. We have the characters, we have the personalities, we have the locations, we have an idea of how we want it all to kind of interact with each other and what happens when affects things. Because I want to build it so that because it's randomly chosen, the spread can go up this way. The spread can go down this way. The spread could kind of S or go up and down, right? It can go a lot of different ways, and I want the way that it kind of spreads to paint a slightly different picture of the story that unfolds. Because maybe if it goes this way, and these neighbors saw all these things happening, maybe they step up. Maybe they step up and bunker down, and then suddenly this is a force to be reckoned with, and they're not able to take over this location very much, right? Or maybe these guys manage to get into the hardware store and help all their neighbors bunker up, right? We can create kind of like conditions where it's like, what would they do in the short term and in the long term of things going good or going bad? And we just kind of plan for just generic how things move forward, and not super complex tech trees of like, oh, if this house gets it, then this house gets it, then this house gets it, and if all those get there, then this house gets this little prompt. Like, that's way too much. It would be like 30, I think there's like 36 locations is what we have going on here. It would be 36 exclamation mark. in mathematical terms. I don't know the act factor or whatever it's called, which would be 35. It would be 36 plus 35 plus 34 plus 33, and then you go all the way down, and that's how many different kinds of things we would have to slot in and code and make sure it goes smoothly for. That's a freaking nightmare. So I think instead it's just a general kind of, did they last a long time? What would they do immediately? And then what would they do eventually? And then let the game pan out from there. Because they're just going to do what they're going to do. Because in a realistic scenario as well, these people, they're not really paying a whole lot of attention of everybody else. Why would this person give a flying frick of what happened to this person? They wouldn't. They wouldn't care. So unless they're like friends or something. But like, something that, as far as why these houses look this way, this is the old side of town, this is the poor side of town, and this is the rich side of town. I don't know if you can kind of tell, but there's a red gate around this. This is a gated community. This is like affordable housing. They're really close together, very concentrated. And then this is kind of the old town where the houses are older. There's a lot more land between everybody, and it was left over from when this town was just like a coal mining town or something. I mean, we might lean into the whole coal mining town thing, and maybe these things were just coming out of the caves of the coal mine. That feels a little cliche, but we could go that direction if we wanted. But yeah, these. I also did like red herrings as far as what seems like protection versus what seems like not protection. So like this, for example, has a gate around it. This is almost like the mayor's house in a way, right? Where it's like, it's a bigger house, it has a gate, so you just assume that it will have difficulty getting inside. But the reality of the situation is just as easy. I like giving the impression of safety, but not allowing it, right? Or it's just like, actually no. Or like this one is like a dirt path. It's not a direct path into this. They have to like, is this a connection or not? I want people to kind of question it a little bit. Yeah. Let's see what else. What else do we have? Oh, here it is. Here's all of what we made so far. We have 56 locations. No, that's 56 people. We have 56 people total. We have 7 kids, 14 teens, 28 adults, and 7 seniors. And I broke it down to like different ratios of 8 families with like, how many families with kids are there? How many of them are like seniors, where it's just like living with younger generation, living by themselves. And then I forget why I chose them, but in the way I did, I probably took like averages of small town population, maybe. I don't remember. All I remember is the result of this. And then we have 28 buildings. So we have a park, abandoned buildings, laundromat. We did have a laundromat because I like the idea of a horror situation happening at a laundromat. Hardware store, gas station / car repair. I think I combined certain ones. Cable company / news network, general store / drugstore, a vet, a church / graveyard, a school community center, and an alcohol store. I was trying to like find good stores / locations that would be in a small town. And I remember Googling, just being like, what would be in a small town? Like, what would be... And I was like, there's no way there isn't an alcohol store in a small town. There's no way. Of one place? Of a place called One Place? Or is there a place that you have in mind? Because if so, I would like to know so I could see if it can give me good inspiration. Or at least confirmation that I'm on the right track. I also considered a gun store, because this is in America. And then I have them in different like groupings. One is just spooky atmospheric, gameplay focus where it has positive negative effects, consequences where if you lose it, bad things happen. Sounds like Ravenholm from HL2. What's HL2? Hold on, let me Google. Let us see, let us see. I don't think you could draw such much inspiration from Ravenholm since it's a zombie-infested town. Maybe? Ravenholm. Half-Life 2. Oh, that explains it. Yeah, I never played Half-Life. But maybe. Maybe I could check it out and see if there's good inspiration there. Players send people too late, you lose resource. Player doesn't want to lose resource, don't send resources. Mimic takes over location, continues to spread. Looks like I was potentially moving forward with the idea of going to community center. Oh, we were also discussing about power outages. Like, do we want the power to go out? And if so, how's our power gonna go? It's like maybe we don't have access to the map anymore, but we have access to the phone line and the radio and everything else, but just not the map if the power goes out. Add the phone when it's disconnected from location. This is where things become red so that you can keep track of when you lose things. Yeah. Here's all the things I wanted to add for accessibility. Nothing that we need to go into right now. But pretty much we're building this with accessibility in mind, specifically on the audio department and the visual. We could probably make a lot of changes to the visual stuff. Overstimulation is something we're going to have to keep in mind as far as audio, but there are certain accessibility stuff that we aren't going to be able to do strictly because it is such an audio heavy game that there just might be choices that we just have to move forward with. In that it's just we can't removing it or changing this in any way, shape, or form would involve changing the core aspect of the game. So do what we can, but we can't do everything kind of mentality. Interactions, what do we got here? Click on a house from menu. This is kind of going more into detail of, I think this is just an order. Player is represented with facts from the phone call. Player decides if the facts are true or not from the imposter system. Player chooses the resource accurate to the decision, resource management. Resources arrive at location, the navigation system, and then results of that decision is shown to the player radio system. This is me trying to figure out step by step of like, how would I implement the interaction of every step so that you could see and know what you need to know in order to continue playing the game, right? Where it's like, the problem is like overwhelming the senses as well as clicking on the houses, because as an accessibility thing, you kind of don't want clicking on precise things consistently, because people who have difficulty doing that aren't going to be able to play it. So we were considering like, oh, each house could be its own almost like keybind to it, or you could tab through it and stuff like that. But I think we ended up moving forward with the idea that you're just able to send, when you're on the call, you just send it will just automatically go to that house. You don't really need to know which house to click, because if you then click the wrong house, that would be really frustrating too. So I think we moved away from clicking. Coworkers, this is the one we were talking about it. This also is talking about if the Baylor leaves during the power outage. Maybe I was moving forward with the idea of power outage. This was discussing about the tutorial. So at the beginning of the game, the reason that we are going forward with the idea that that the player has worked here before, because I don't want a truly super in-depth tutorial. it would be weird in the game space that the tutorial showed you how mimics spread. That would be weird. That's a weird thing to implement in a training system in this world. It's like, oh, just in case we have a zombie spread protocol or something, right? Maybe we could actually paint it as a zombie spread protocol, actually. Like, they're just like, hey, you want to try out this weird new zombie protocol thing that they added for no reason? And then it's just like, sure. And then maybe that could introduce it? Because it's not mimic, but it's essentially kind of based around the idea of it. I'll think about it. The idea, though, was that you are trained, quote unquote, on the basic interactions of this. So the call coming in, this interaction, being able to click all these things, or at least these three, the phone, the map, and the keybind. These things you are told directly how to do, because that is the core interaction of the game necessary to understand in order to move forward with it. Everything else is a learning, it's a learning growth line thing. Right? So it'll teach you how to answer the phone. It'll teach you how to find it on the map, and then it'll teach you how to put it in the keybind. So that this tutorial is like, okay, it's showing you that potentially violent situations, you want to send the police, potentially wounded people, you want to send an ambulance, and then fire/inability to access people is fire truck. And then I also explored the idea of certain combinations of things happening is a combination of PAF, but that kind of got to a point where I was like, I feel like that's getting too complicated. We want this game to be so not stupid, so straightforward and easily interactable. We want the majority of the brain space to be allocated of figuring out who is on the other end of the phone. We don't want to overload their brain with, hey, is the person on the other end of the phone a real or not? Also, does this situation call for police, ambulance, fire truck, police and ambulance, police and fire truck, police, ambulance and fire truck and ambulance? Like, that's too much. That's too much. It's too much stuff. We want to be able to be like, hey, it's just you make the you hear it, you make a decision, and then you hit the buttons. Like, that's all you need to worry about. And then the rest of the brain stuff is listening. Because also, if you overwhelm them mentally, they're not going to listen to the damn radio. They're not going to. It's similar to when trying to find a parking spot and you turn the radio off. Like, the audio just becomes noise and interference if you're not properly listening to it. So we need to find like a good middle ground between difficulty where it keeps you interested, but not too difficult that would make it so that you aren't listening and getting put into the situation even when things get bad. And I think that's kind of the point, is that it's going to be really hard to try to keep things within the realm of that, because in the beginning, not a lot is going to happen. And because not a lot's going to happen, we don't want the player to get bored in the beginning. And then at the end, we don't want to overwhelm everybody with all the things that are happening. So how do we make it so that it is within boredom and overwhelming? And that's going to be a whole thing in of itself. That's going to be a whole thing by itself. So that's what this is like. The tutorial is basically just focusing on the interactions in the important interactions in order to live, right? This is the imposter system of hearing, understanding, context, and knowledge that we mentioned before. This was some of the other things that was relatively recent that I don't think we 100% went too deep on, is the idea of this is late 90s, early 2000s. What would people be doing on the computer at that point, at that time? And one of them is that maybe we have an implemented system of AIM. Do y'all remember any idea what AIM is? AOL Instant Messenger? Because I know that was my high school years. So I was peak when that was happening for me. But I don't know if that was the same for y'all. But the idea here is like teenagers will be instant messaging through the computer, and maybe we can have situations where they are contacting us through AIM, right? Oh, this was another one that was pretty fun. Potential Clippy to give the player an ability to ask for help without having to rely on looking at instructions. So the idea that we remove an instruction manual, read it yourself approach, and much more of a AI Clippy, and you're just like, hey, how can I help you solve this apocalypse kind of thing, which I thought was really funny, but it's also peak that time period too. So I could definitely see that being a thing. People can defend themselves. In doing so, the player must decide to believe that person is real when they call. So there is a significant portion of time where it's just like, oh, these people can't defend themselves at all. You either save them or they die. But after giving it a lot more thought, I believed that the decision to make it so they can defend themselves creates an interesting situation that would otherwise not, it wouldn't be as clear, right? Because if they don't defend themselves, that means it's either they are calling you trying to live or they're dead. Those are the only two choices in that situation. But if they can defend themselves and they have the potential to defend themselves, then they can call saying they fought them off. But did they? Did they fight them off? Or is that the monster trying to keep you from sending police over? You don't know. You have no idea if they really fought them off or not. And that creates an interesting new interaction and decision of like, shit, do I believe them? Can I believe them? Right? And at the moment, we don't have a system or planning a system in place where you're able to ask them questions, right? It's not like you could poke and prod them like, oh yeah, well, what's your wife's name? Or something like that. Like, you don't, as far as I'm aware, we're kind of playing a bit of a silent protagonist in this case. Of like, we're answering the phone. The only thing that we tell them is that people are on their way, but there isn't like a RPG style, you decide how you respond kind of thing. At least not right now. I'm not 100% on the idea of that, but it would be interesting in the aspect of like, if you suspect the other person on the phone is real or not, to give the player more tools necessary to come to a decision on their own, albeit asking questions, and then once they answer the questions may or may not be like weird, but that does drastically increase the amount of complexity for all this as well, right? But my original approach and my current approach, I would also argue, is a bit passive. You're not really taking an active role in any of this. But also, this is a horror game. And specifically, this is a strategy horror game, which is really difficult to pull off. And I'll explain why. The core purpose of each are opposite. So in a strategy game, it's about empowering the player with knowledge, with hints, and then like you get them to that end where they solve the problem and they're able to come up with the correct solution to what is in front of them, and there's that empowering like euphoric moment where you are right and the game rewards you for it. And that's fun and dandy and super great. I myself love strategy games, but and for horror, it's disempowerment. You want people to feel weak, you want them to feel vulnerable, you want them to feel enclosed, because that is what creates that suspense, that tenseness, and that the the peak horror situations, right? It's why a lot of horror games, at the very least, are like, oh, you have a little bit of a sprint button, but you can't like just beat the monster down with your lantern, right? And so we have two genres kind of merged together where we want to empower people enough with the information given, but not too much power where it's not scary anymore. And we don't want to make it so that we disempower them too much, because then there's nothing to figure out. They have no control over the end because they don't have enough power to control over it, so they might as well give up now. Right? So it's a very, especially for a first game, I've chosen what I thought was going to be one of the easier ideas that we've put together for a game. It is in the aspect of like assets, but not so much as far as systems. But that's okay. But that's part of what makes it so damn interesting. So we want, and what I'm moving forward with, is that we want to give just enough information, just enough to have the player do what they need to do. And I have mentioned FNAF before as well, but FNAF does this amazingly in that, and I don't know if y'all realize this either, and it's why I did it this way as well. Do you wonder why in this menu I made it so I spent weeks trying to figure out how to zoom in the camera to the different objects? It's because when you are interacting with these objects, you're not able to see the information. You are given control only when you sacrifice information that you can get. In FNAF did this wonderfully, because when you look at the camera to see where all the animatronics are, you're not able to interact or see the doors. And when you are interacting with the doors, you can't see where they are. And it's a trade-off. And I don't think a lot of people like keyed in on that fact. It is one of those things where you, in horror, especially when it comes to giving information, it should always come at a cost of control. It's either you have control or you have information, but you don't have both. And in strategy games, you are usually given both. Right? So that's why in these, I'm making it so that you can't interact with certain aspects to it. You are given information, but only at a cost of something else. So we have to keep that in mind as we continue to move forward with things, to how we're going to go about that. Imposters will spread via manually added options, but will be a chance base on which it will spread to. I think the way I was stating this was like, oh, it will be added here at this house. And I think the idea here is that even though I'm never going to stay it out completely, there is an implication that there's more than one. Though in the beginning there is only more than one, but then maybe over here this house gets taken, and then over here this house gets taken. And then like as time goes on and you're doing good job, more and more of these will start coming in until you're overwhelmed and the game is over, right? So the idea of that statement is that where they come in is fixed, but where they go from that house is random. Some locations will have more connections than others, thus being a higher value to defend the player. We want to create that not all locations are created equal. Each of the pieces of this chessboard have different amount of quote-unquote value to them as a player. And we want to make that decision as difficult as possible. We want to make it so that you, having to decide between two completely different families, do you take the, like, which one do you sacrifice for the greater good? Which one do you not help because you can't help them, right? So by that, it's just like this, it's what I mentioned before as far as this house versus this house. This house is located, like, what they're able to connect to from here is a lot. They're able to spread to a lot of different areas from this location. And then if either of these gets taken over, that really opens up this area to just chain reaction all the way down. Whereas up here, it's only like just a couple of houses. But it's also similar to like the school. If you are able to keep this kind of like wall boundary clear, these houses are really difficult to take out. And it's the same for like over here with this, but then you would have to, if you lose this, for instance, then they get access to both the gated community and the upper end of the lower, I was gonna say lower class, but that's not an accurate statement. It's just low income housing. Right. And like, it's the spread of that. It's the deciding what is more important. Is it fine to lose another one of these houses up here, as long as it means that you're able to contain the spread by keeping everything around it okay, right? Possible advanced mechanics that can be manipulated. When the phone rings and a decision needs to be made, a certain amount of time is given to the player to make a decision. We are still not 100% on do we time them, because timing gives the feeling of urgency, but having it as a timed thing does kind of give people hesitancy. Because it's like, oh, I can't talk it out. Like, for instance, one of the key things about when making this game that I was keeping in mind the entire time, even before we even got anywhere close to this point, it was, we need to keep in mind what our game is coming into as far as just like society, like the environment of releasing a horror game in this day and age. So like, there's going to be a lot of competition. There are thousands of games released on Steam a day, I think, at this point. And so we need to make sure that if we're going to be making this game, we need to do it in a way that will give us the best chance for it to do well. And for that, we have 3 particular aspects that we want to do as much as we can for. The first is that the game is fun to play. I feel like that's going to be the case for most people. Most people create games that want to be played. Like, they want the people to like to play it. This allows it so that people give good reviews, but there are plenty of really good games out there that really don't get taken off. They don't really take off, but they're good games and people enjoy to play it, but that's how you kind of create like a niche market, right? 2, you have a game that is fun to watch people play. And this one allows you to utilize streaming and videos and other forms of essentially free marketing in a lot of cases, where you have plenty of people out there whose whole niche is playing video games, also especially like horror as well is also one as well, where they like to pick out the gems and they show it to people, right? But there's a problem with that. If you make a game that's really fun to watch and that's it, then people will watch them play that game because it's really fun, but they won't get the game themselves. They'll look at the reviews and be like, people aren't enjoying this. Which leaves the third option, to remove a potential other aspect of the marketing. And that is, Well, if they watch the game, why would they buy it? Right? Why would they buy a game that they watched? And the third thing that we need to keep in mind is to make a game that's fun even after you've seen someone play it. And that is how you keep your own advertising to cannibalize your sales, right? Because if you don't have all three of these, then, at least from my perspective, from my unexpert perspective, you're gonna have a lot of difficulty. You're gonna have certain part of it kind of consume other parts of it, right? So, like, it's fun to play and it's fun to watch, but if it's not fun to play after you watch it, then that means you've advertised your game, but no one's gonna want to buy it after they watched it. Some people might, and they will play it a little bit and they will enjoy it, but they're like, I feel like I got everything out of this. A good example would be, granted, you know, you're not really see this as much, but like single player games that are very narrative driven, and a lot of the experience you get are narrative. After you've watched someone play it, why would you play it? You got the narrative. You're fine. It's like, what more can you get out of it? Like, for me, that was Last of Us. Like, I love The Last of Us. It is such a good game. It is so good. I still need to do Last of Us 2, actually. It's such a good game. It's so good. It's so damn good. But I watched someone play it because I didn't have a PS4. I didn't have a PlayStation. And then I got a PlayStation and I was like, but why would I buy the game now? I love it, but why would I play it? Like, what would I get more out of it by playing it? And so it kind of creates a little bit where the advertising cannibalized the sales. So by making a game that's fun to play, fun to watch, and fun to play after we watch is so important in order to make sure it does well. And I think roguelikes are a significant portion of why roguelikes do so well, is specifically because that it really roguelikes especially excel in that third aspect where you watch someone play it, you're interested in it, but every run is different, so that you're still able to grow and have fun even though you've seen parts of it. So when we're making this game, we're going to make it so that people can still watch and have fun and like playing it. And of course, we're making a game that's fun to play, but then they play it themselves. And then that's why we're doing the random directions. That's why we're going in different avenues, and that's why we're doing the stories of the characters of the emergency personnel up until the end, because the last person who lives isn't going to be the same person every time, because who you send usually is randomly. And because it's randomly, it means randomly you're going to get different people who make it to the end. So you're going to have a different story every time. Not every time, but like enough times. Enough times where once you pay attention to it, you can control it to an extent where you can kind of see all the different endings, and then you have people who want to see all the different people's reactions throughout each story, and then you have content creators making videos about each of those, thus growing it even more and growing your outreach even more. It's so important to keep in mind of the environment that you are making something. And with that, I'll see y'all in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back. So when phone rings, make a decision. Decision-making process doesn't get added to the time. Oh, I don't know what I mean by that. 1.5 minutes to make a decision once phone is answered, I think, is what I considered. Or none is considered an advantage, so not part of metrics. I think metrics is the idea that is almost like you're graded at the end, where it's like, oh, how long did you last, how does that compare to other people? And then it's like, cool, you can switch it to none where there's no limit, but you're not gonna be you're not going to be added to the same group of people, right? Challenge modes. Let's see here. Have player choose difficulty settings for different aspects of the game. Decrease decision time. Oh, okay. So we make it more challenging, right? Decrease cooldown for incoming calls, increase variability of spread, increase speed of spread, and then infinite modes. People are no longer specific to their location. So infinite mode, in my opinion, is like chaos mode, where now everyone can be anywhere. So your reservoir of remembering the context clues for different houses and people are now thrown out the window. We now make it so that everyone has like a random assessment of different personality traits. We scramble it. That's a potential. I don't know how we would change that on voices though. Two-way radio stations you could turn to for clues. I don't even remember writing that. Section specifically for two-way radio. So a radio station that you could turn on for clues, almost like a different version of Clippy that we were considering. That if there's no one out there, like you could change the channel, and the channel is kind of like something that gives you direction. Oh god, sorry. Scripts. That sees kills mom. This is one we mentioned earlier. We'll also do ice cream truck scene, as well as teenager losing younger brother at industrial complex. Have discussions will be around the time period of the current game, early 2000s, working double to save up Pokemon game for Christmas. Oh, so we also wanted to implement to make sure that the coworkers also feel real, not just like everyone else, just like everyone in different houses, just like every emergency personnel. We want it so that the people around the player, a good way to put this, I'm gonna put this so it's not as bright for y'all, is that this right here, behind this is a big screen where if there's an emergency person like broadcast, you would see it kind of pop off. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of different screens with a bunch of different kind of like random like weather or something like that. And then you would have like these tables in front of you where you see like different just different computers lit up and people walk by, and you hear people talking, you hear the phones ringing, you hear murmuring, like it's loud, it's busy. And what I want is, as the game moves forward, it gets subtle, so very slowly, more and more quiet. And what I want to mimic, what I want to have a feeling, to imbue it in the player, is the same feeling of the forest going quiet. Like you're in the middle of the woods, you hear all the birds, you hear all the insects, you hear all that, and then it just slowly dives down. And then next thing you know, you feel a little uneasy, and then you register all the insects stopped, all the birds stopped. It is dead quiet, and the only thing that you can hear is your own footsteps. And that is the feeling that I want to implement as things continue to go bad, as your coworkers leave, etc. It starts to get more and more quiet. It gets less and less busy, until at the very end of the game, when there's no one left, that's when it dawns on you like, oh, it's been quiet for a long time. It's been quiet for a while now, and I don't like this. Like, long enough where you blended it to the background so you don't pay attention to it anymore, and not distracting enough that it pulls your attention away from things. But as time moves on, it slowly goes away, right? Because we want that. So have discussions of your, so part of that is coworkers having conversations, and so we would want realistic conversations for the time period, like saving up for a Pokemon game for their kid, and then you get, okay, cool, they have a kid, which is the one we can say this is the coworker that goes home to, like, after their home gets broken into because they have a kid. It's like, okay, cool, we know they have a kid because they mentioned they're saving up for Christmas for a Pokemon game for their kid, right? Have a blurry computer that's playing Tetris or Solitaire. That would be pretty funny. Just having like someone's playing a game because there's no calls that are coming through. Broadcast system. This is one that I mentioned before. Background information hub that will inform people of the town what to do. The player must make sure the broadcast is not manipulated in any way, originally by the news anchor and eventually by the mimics. And if the people receive false information, the spread of mimics will intensify and no calls will be made to the operator. So by that, it is the interpretation of, okay, let's say the broadcast system has now been taken over and they're saying, hey, people are hurt. People may be hurt and may be going over to friends and family. Please, if you could give them temporary shelter, that would allow the ease of like the emergency personnel to do what they need to do, right? Which is something that we did not say. But it makes sense that like what they would argue, what they would say would make sense. Well, if then my neighbor Jim, who I've given my lawnmower to and we've had a good solid relationship for the last 10 years, knocks on my door saying like, hey, yeah, no, I'm hurt, please let me in. I'm not gonna call the cops. I'm not gonna just call them and be like, oh, my neighbor Jim's at the front door, what do I do? I'm gonna let Jim in because the news network said it's all fine to do that and I care about his personal well-being. I open the door, immediately die because it's not Jim, and then no cops were called. And that means you don't know if the person, like, because we want to also put it on its head of the idea of if a house hasn't called before, then it's safe to assume that they've been human. As long as they say they didn't try to defend themselves, they're automatically human. But we don't want them to make a safe assumption. We want to break safe assumptions in this game. And in this case, if we lose the broadcast system, that means any call could be a mimic call. Because they weren't going to call the emergency person at 911 when they were just going to open their door to help their neighbor in, right? So, something to keep in mind. If the people receive certain people will not listen to the broadcast via good or bad. And that's the one that I mentioned before with the stubborn old man who refuses to be told what to do. Where it's like, it's bad when you're trying to make sure they don't let people in, but it's good when you lose it and then they're just like, I'm not letting people in, F that. Right? Emergency shutdown. Let's just go ahead and do it this way. We'll do I hopefully won't have this up, it's fine. Player has access to a single video feed outside of the city. Oh, this is the emergency shutdown. This actually needs a little bit. Hold on. We are gonna Excel, I love you. I really, really, really do. But we need to talk about your dark mode. Alright? I don't know what kind of pull I have for Excel. I'm an advocate. I love you for everything that you do. But my God, my man. We need good blackout background. So it's black and then white. inversed. Because we don't have that currently. And it sucks. Black, for those that don't know, the dark mode for Excel, the Excel is still white. Everything up here turns black. And that's it. It's still a giant white Excel thing. I hate it. I hate it. This is the only way to get around it, which is, this is a picture of just a black screen of a black box. It's set as a background, and then I manually set everything to white. That's what I had to do. So, I mean, unless there's something that I don't know. If you know something, let me know. You know what I mean? So, emergency shutdown. There was a recommendation a while back. I think it might have been dark, if I remember correctly. But the idea that there should be an immediate danger. It shouldn't just be this long, what if you wanted to really lose quickly? Right? Like, oops, I made a mistake, I want to reset kind of thing. It's like, I'll just lose really quick, right? And you gotta wait until every house gets taken over, and then you wait for all the calls. I mean, we could just solve the solution by just having a reset button or a restart, but still. The idea is you want something more immediately pressing that you need to continue to hold back in order on top of everything else that you're doing, right? So, like, on top of trying to prevent the spread of this, there's like another thing where they're trying to get in where you are, and you need to make sure that they don't get into where you are, or else you just die. That's just the end of the run. Even if they didn't take over the whole thing, you would still get taken over. And I have reservations with it, but it's still something I'm willing to explore the idea of, just because of y'all seemed really on board with it, and I value y'all's feedback. But we would have to kind of shift the mentality of, like, the player being the last one alive then, right? Because if they are going to be the last one alive, they don't got to worry about the instant death, because there's no instant, they're not going to kill her, right? And so the player has access to a video feed outside of the facility. At any point, the player can look at the video, and if they see something, they press shutdown. When the button is pressed, the player and all equipment are disconnected from the outside world, and shutters come down, preventing any access. The player waits until the something is gone, then can press the button again to reconnect with the outside world. So the idea here, there's a couple of flaws to this. One, we really, really want to give the impression of, we're not giving any indication of what these things look like. Right, we mentioned that before. So having a video feed of quote-unquote something means that we have given an indication of what these things look like. So we would have to give an indication that something there while nothing is there. Right. So it's kind of one of those things where either we need to do like environmental cues, like there's something on the door, or like claw marks, or trash being pushed over, or barriers being cut, or like indications that something managed to get through, and then you shut it down. But then how would you indicate that it's still there or not? Is it footprints? And we look for footprints. But even all those things I mentioned give indication of what these things are. If it's footprints, do they look human? Are they bipedal? Are they quadruped? Are they multiped? Like, do these things look like centipedes for all we know? And then if there's something on the door, is it slime? Is it claws? That is, does it have claws? Does it, like, we don't know how. I haven't decided how much I'm willing to go into the idea of how the people are being killed. Only that it is brutal. So, incomplete, right? So that still gives enough room of like, is it eaten? Is it clawed? Is it brute force? Is it just strength? Is it like, maybe we give indication of maybe the utilization of like throwing something on top of, maybe, but that also gives the indication that it has palms to some degree, right? So we have to be careful with these descriptions to avoid manipulating the feel of it. I mean, we have this much. We have this kind of interaction. And then we're currently on like this red bar, this red circle is the current zone of scanning for possible spread. So as of right now, we're on the infection spread phase of the how does it decide which houses to go after. So we've made it, quote unquote, in that, but it is the reason a lot of today is going through the idea of it is because it's been 4 months, and I need to get I need to get myself back into the mentality of where we're at, and then also y'all probably need a refresher of what the hell we're doing. What is it that we're making? What is it that we've decided on? And we're just quickly going over this, quickly in quotations, it's been like 2 hours, going over like 7 months of decisions that we may or may not need a refresher for. But player waits until something is gone, press a button, and if the player does not catch the something in time, one of the coworkers will be replaced by the mimic and death will soon follow. Yeah, I mean, this was just one idea of the problem that needed to be addressed. Let's write it down. The problem that is to be addressed is the need of an immediate threat. So how would we add an immediate threat with the parameters that we've set within ourselves, right? How would we set an immediate threat? Also, this example here, it feels very FNAF, and though I am taking lessons from FNAF, I don't want to lean so much into it where it's like, oh, this is a FNAF clone, but just like different as far as just gameplay wise, right? But let's think about it logically, at least from the perspective of these creatures. So these creatures come and they observe. They don't, as of right now, they don't get in until the very end when they're already nearby and your coworker goes to take a call. So everyone else, for the most part, they don't die there. One of them runs away, leaves the town, quote unquote leaves town. By the way, they never make it out, spoiler alert. One returns home because their kid said someone broke in. They don't make it out alive. The third one is, as of right now, an ex-cop, but I'm still not married to that idea. I feel like we're gonna have to come up with a couple other ideas for the third coworker besides just person who loses their mind and the ex-cop who says, F you, I should be out there. And then the fourth one being the one that it does end up getting replaced. So there really isn't any immediate threat to any of them. The threat is an impending threat. So in my mind, it's akin to something similar to like a tidal wave. Like, you see it coming. You see the waves recede. You hear the warnings, the sirens. You try to make it out in time and or prepare for the water to hit. And then it hits. But do you need an immediate threat when there's a tidal wave coming? I guess the immediate threat would be looting or robbing, which is, usual people panic things. But I don't really know. I don't know what would be considered an immediate threat in this case, because they would start on the other end, usually. Well, maybe we can explore the different endings. So in this game, there are two... There's probably more that I'm forgetting, but there's two main ones, because we have to think about how the player is going to be playing this game. And there's really two ways to play the game. There is to do what you're supposed to do and try to survive as many people as possible. Or there's just to not do anything. You don't answer the phone call, you don't send out any resources, and you just hoard. You don't lose resources. You don't. You lose houses. But guess what? When they get over to your corner of the map, if you don't send anybody out and everyone loses their homes, etc., you still have a full supply of emergency personnel that are right here. You have all your cops, all your fire trucks, all your things right here ready to go to defend the crap out of just this small location. Right? And it would be really, really hard to try to create a resource system that would also include this possibility of you wouldn't have enough to defend yourself if it was only 4 buildings. And it's like, I think you would. I think you would have enough to defend yourself here. And so the first ending, the true ending, or not true ending, but like the fight ending, is you lose your resources over time, either by mistakes or just circumstance. You're not able to keep up with everything. You lose everything. Everyone gets taken over. You're the last one. Phone rings, right? And then the second ending is you turtle. You don't send literally anything. And you just sit there and not do your job. And you just hoard like all those resources, and then you try to survive. And for that ending, I want you to be able to hear the gunshots and them try to defend your location. Like you hear them fight these things outside and then lose. Like there's too many of them, and then you lose, and then they all come in, and then the ending is different because your behavior was so drastically different, right? So to that extent, there is an immediate threat because you're the last one there and you've hoarded the resources to defend yourself. I don't know. I honestly don't know how we can add an immediate threat that you would need to keep an eye on. But I also think it may also have nothing to do with this. Maybe instead it's a constant maintenance interaction that people crave. Is maintaining, because that's essentially what the immediate threat is. The immediate threat is something that you have to constantly keep your eye on, and if you don't keep your eye on it, shit gets real. And like this is FNAF music box, right? It's a on top of the loop that you're currently doing, there is one thing that literally you cannot forget or you lose the game. And that might be something we could do. Because what would it be that is a constant thing that we would need to make sure that we would have in order to do our job well? And I think it might be power. Would it be a good idea if there is some kind of way that we would need to make sure that we have enough power to do the things that we are doing? And if we don't keep up with it, we lose power. And then I was going to say game over, but maybe? But also that makes it very difficult. Oh man, that makes it difficult for speedrunners. Well, not difficult. It makes it too easy for speedrunners. It's like, cool, I just let the power go out, and then that's the end of the game. We'll think about it. We'll think about it. Let's continue going through. Maybe it'll hit me. This is the interactions, or this is the Easter eggs we talked about earlier. The lemon, the dodo plushie, and then when we click it, it changes the costume. And then doing a ritual, maybe there'll be like a horde of dodos or something. They'll just come in and take everything out. New Game Plus. Oh, this was another idea. New Game Plus. Granted, we're probably not going to do this. Look. I love, and I want this to kind of be a staple in games that I make, because I love the idea of it. Since the beginning of putting together video games and thinking of making video games, I love the idea of New Game Plus being different. I love it. Like, it's the same location from a different perspective. That's what I love about it, right? For someone who loves that, I haven't played Nier Automata. I should, because that's essentially what they do, I think. Or maybe you need to play it like 4 times, something like that. So, I don't remember. I don't know. But all I know is that some of the first games that I wanted to make involved New Game Plus, new things happening. And so the idea that I had for this game is that you would do a playthrough and then you would lose. Because that's by design, eventually. But then you play it. Then you play New Game Plus. And what do? You play as one of the people in these houses during your previous gameplay. And you see it from their perspective. You see them, you have to now make decisions on trying to keep them out. When do you call the police? Or maybe you'll start right when you called the police. And then now you have to defend your location as best as you can. And it will play out the way that you just went through from a 911 operator perspective. And I really like that idea, but that is also essentially making a whole nother game and slapping it onto this game. I could see that being more something that I would do if we make this game and it does really well, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna make a DLC for this game, and then I'll just do a New Game Plus of that. Also, where the hell is our trucks? Right? It wasn't this. I remember having a whole conversation about this. There's a whole thing that we did. Here, I will just do this. There's a whole thing that we talked about where originally there was going to be a 4th truck. It was going to be how I was going to integrate an organic tutorial system or help system where you, the player, have 4 resources, not 3. And the 4th resource are cryptic hunters, just a bunch of people who have been hunting these things down for years, like trying to find them, like always like a step behind. But then you have these people who were like obsessed with these things that have been tracking us to this location and were also part of the previous location. And what they would do is, if you utilize them appropriately, they can give you further information, not 100% accurate, but reduce the possibilities of things happening. So it was kind of like they would call, you know, or they would want, you would send them after you saved a house. And then let's say you went to like this house, right? It's like, okay, you would send them there. They would do their work. They would go in with their EMFs and their UV lights and whatever kind of, we're going to pretend like they have a custom-made equipment to tell where they're going or intentions or something. And then it will give you like a cone of like, oh, they went this direction. So either the next two, they're likely either to be here or here. So now you know where the next location is, or approximately where they would go, right? So you can, if you got like a weird call from over here, that's kind of like a pretend this might be an infection, you've already confirmed that they didn't head that way, so it's probably safe, right? And then they would also call you to let you know as far as like the secret behaviors of these things. Like they're the ones who would give you the inclination of there might be more than one. We don't really kill them. They kind of run away and they follow. They may not always be the ones directly next to them. It may be further along. Like they feed you the stuff that you would find out through assumptions, and that the game doesn't tell you. Doesn't strictly tell you. And I'm not 100. Well, one, I felt I ended up removing it because I felt that it isn't necessary. Like, it's one of those things that's nice to have, but is not a minimum viable product, right? It's not a thing where it's like, if I remove it, it becomes less of a game. The game that I'm trying to make. And I also don't quite know the balance of how much to tell and how much not to tell. I am very much on the aspect of, I like it when the game doesn't tell you what to do and instead gives you not clear rules, but gives you enough that you can figure it out on your own, and you can make mistakes and make assumptions and then make mistakes on those assumptions, and it plays on that. And then as you play the game, you learn the rules more diligently and you're able to apply those accordingly, right? But other people might find that I can't speak. Very frustrating. And this, where they were like, oh, it's the rule is this, and then they get proven wrong, and they're like, this game is bullshit. This is the rule. I know it is, and then they just don't. They just don't play the game because they've misinterpreted what the rule is, got it wrong, got proven wrong, and then got frustrated with it because they still think they're right, but the game is what messed up, right? And I think as long as you are able to make it clear that it is purposely meant to be that way, I think it's okay. I think a lot of the frustration lies with the assumption of what kind of game this is, which is why I was kind of against the idea of implementing a tutorial about the mimic spread. Specifically because if we were to add a tutorial about the mimic spread, but we don't cover everything about the mimic spread, then people are going to be like, why are the rules that you told me wrong? And it's like, well, that's because I told you some things but not everything. But unless I say specifically, I told you some things but not everything, people are going to assume I told them everything. But by purposely leaving out a core part of the gameplay loop that was not part of the tutorial, then it's clear from the get-go that there are parts that I didn't say, without having to say that I didn't say, right? But honestly, that might have, we might have to play test that to see how people's interpretation is. Like, is it as clear as I'm anticipating it to be? Or is it backlashing and then the people playing the game don't even know mimics are happening? They have no idea what's happening because I didn't spoon feed it to them, right? And I mean, the calls should be obvious. I mean, that's the quote-unquote tutorial, by the way, is the first call from the house up here is an automatic, because we talked about different difficulties, right? Between number one being, voice being variable to sentence structure, blah, blah, blah. It's an automatic, easiest determinate call off the rip. There's no variance to that. All the other ones vary. I did have plans as far as not only is it random as far as the location they decide to go to, but when they go there, the difficulty is also within a certain range, and then that range increases to higher difficulties as time goes on, as they quote-unquote become smarter and then used as they collect more and more information, right? And then as new guys come in, they come in at lower difficulties or varying difficulties, showing their own experience, right? Because if you get used to the higher difficulty ones and then we throw in a low difficulty one, you're going to be like, whoa, hold on. Why is this one stupid? And then a assumption they can kind of come to is like, oh, this might be a new one that came in. This one isn't the one I've been dealing with this whole time. So that's the idea, is like these creatures are also learning and growing and tricking. And especially with the spread here, the current, I believe, and I'll have to double check with what I've put in the code, but is that there is a percent chance based on proximity. And then, so this is like the first one. This is the first zone that we implemented. And then there's a second zone and then a third zone. And anything within the second zone has a decreased chance of it going to, with an increased chance depending on the difficulty that it's currently at. So I think I would probably actually give the difficulty as a quality to the creature itself. So it's a difficulty 1. So it will either do 1 to 3, it was like 1 to 2, etc. It has like a range, and then as they become more experienced, they gain XP. Essentially, they're leveling off of you. They're grinding off of you. And as they level up, they have, I mean, there's still a small chance that they could go to further things, because I also don't want to give the impression of all these other areas over here are safe because they're over here. This game is all about breaking assumptions. It's all about breaking the idea of, oh, because this is farther away, I don't need to think about what I'm listening to. I don't need to think about what I'm listening to. I can assume that this is safe, and we can just send the normal amount. Like, I don't want to give that feeling. Like, some of them you can. Like, over here, if the game just started, it won't show up over here. It won't be completely random, which is why we're trying to figure out this whole zone interaction thing specifically, because otherwise what I could have just done is just hit boop random, and by hitting the random, it would just be like, oh, okay, it started here, but now it's over here, and now it's over here, and now it's over here, and now it's over here, now it's over here. Like, that makes no sense. It would be easy. It would be much easier on my end But like, it's so bleh. And hold on, actually, if I remember correctly, we have made it so that we can make it spread. So let's see if it works. I think it was spacebar. So boom, yes. So now this has been taken over, and then I click it. That could have been taken over, and then I hit it, and then nothing happens. I hit it, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Finally, the last one, nothing. Finally goes through. So now, all that is taken out. So what we want is it to chain. We want to make it so that this is now here. If I refresh this. Sound. And I don't know if you hear it, by the way, but I put me saying sound for when I do sounds in music, when music is supposed to play. So if you hear that, that's that was by design. I apologize for it. But the idea here is I do it once. Now it's there. I want this circle to move here. And then when I hit it again, it's going within that boundary to then go around. And then on top of that, we want to make sure that a place taken over isn't done it again, right? It doesn't go back to where it was. And this is when it's completely taken over, mind you. We also want situations where they go there, but it doesn't get taken over because A, we either save them, or we make it so that they're able to defend themselves. Maybe different houses have a increased or decreased chance to defend themselves over things getting there. Like, some of them will have bats, some of them will have guns, some of them would have, I don't know, insect spray and a lighter. That's what my mom used to do. Like, there are different ways. Like, if I were to put it where it's like, oh, the old grumpy man who doesn't listen to anybody, that guy has a fucking rifle, like, by his bedside. He's good to go. But a family of 4 with a bunch of little kids running around are not going to have a rifle sitting around, but they might have a taser or a baseball bat or something, right? And so it's like, cool, if we think through that, like, what value do we want to give of a chance of these people being able to defend themselves accordingly, right? We don't want it so it's so low you almost never see it, but we don't want it so high that it's like, oh, we don't need to send any of our guys over, right? And do we want it to be a static chance? If they defend it the first time, what does that look like? How would that look different for them? How would they react now that they fought this thing away? Do they board up? Do they move? Do they drive? And if we are going to have driving away and out going to be a thing, what do we do? Do we allow them to leave as a gameplay mechanic? Is them leaving the town something? Is it everyone dies? Or do we want certain people to be able to leave and certain people not? And another thing that I remember deciding upon with this is the idea of some people are home, some people are not. Not everyone is home. Not all the time. What if some of these people aren't home? What if you play and it's just like, by the way, 2 people on every map, or maybe like 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 3 people every map are gone. They're on vacation. Maybe we have increased likelihood of vacation. Maybe this rich guy with a fenced-in bigger house is on vacation 80% of the time. Well, now we're not going to get calls from them. Or maybe we are. Then we have to decide if the person on the other phone is really there or not. Right? There's a lot of interesting ways that we could approach this. But that is after we figure out our imposter spread. Because once we figured out our imposter spread, then we can move forward as far as the intricacies of the imposter spread. Conditions of the houses themselves that would kind of add like a resistance to the spread of a chance of failure, right? But as of right now, we have a system where it's able to detect, find, on spacebar, quote unquote, infect a house, but it's always one of three. It isn't removing it from the pool. And we want that. And then once it gets all three, then it doesn't detect anything anymore, right? Because essentially what we do is that we remove the possibility of that house being selectable in the first place. I think it's like we change it to a different layer, I think is what it is that we did. So let's see here. Camera switch test detection. Yeah. There's a spread, function spread. If action is pressed for spread, which in this case, it's being loaded for every frame. We variable get target 1, 2, and 3. Then variable, there's a location choice between an array of target 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if it'll always be 3. I think we'll have to decide of how many options do we want it to be able to pull, right? Because if it's here, do we want it to be able to pull between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 7, right? Or is it just 3? I think what we would probably do is increase it to something like 10, because what we want is we want it to be able to jump around. We want it to just go pop, 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 right? And oh, if you're wondering why they don't just go this way, I think I'm making it so that there's a car accident right here. It's blocked off for construction, bridges out, something. So you have to like, the only way out is over here. This is the only way out. I still haven't decided if I want people to like leave. Because a part of me wants to say no. A part of me wants to say yes. Because if we make it so that they can leave, do we want to move it forward where there's a potential where they all could leave and then everyone lives? And then there's that interesting story possibility of how all these people lived through this town as they get attacked by mimics. So then the mimics, for the first time in their, not existence, but from their recent memory, now have multiple targets that they can choose from. And they can get chased and stalked accordingly. I don't know if that's more or less interesting than all of them dying. Honestly, can't decide. Honestly, difficult to say. Oh. All right, let's continue looking through it. So it gets the collider, gets a target, gets the collider of that target target 1 variable, location choice, and then if when you're attacked, you get the location choice, pick random, target 1, 2, or 3. Then, if attacked is not null, you set the collision value 1 to false. And I think that's where it becomes non-clickable. We switch the collision layer from 2 to 1, and because the spread detection is only on 2, by switching it to a different collision layer, it doesn't detect it anymore. So it still exists, it's just not detectable. And because if it's not detectable, that means it can't pick it again. And then we change the color, and then we print that it got attacked. It didn't say print attacked. Let's do it again. Hold on. What do you mean?
Sound.
Oh gosh, it doesn't. The menu was the first thing that we made. That itself took like 3 weeks. All right, so it does. Oh, right. It doesn't say attacked. It says the static body number, so that we know what got attacked. And then keep on hitting it. So see the debugger? No collider found. So it chooses, so it still is still trying to choose from the choice. So one of the bigger things that that its problem is that it detects I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think. It still has the location choice of all those targets in the array. So then when you hit it again, it's trying to find that collider. Like, it already got the collider. So then it tries to do it again. And then it's not there because we removed it. So then it's like no collider found. Right? But we don't want that. We want it so that... this is what we were messing with before. We were trying to make it so that after it was chosen... you removed the choice from the array. And then you hit it again. And then it's the other two, right? But that's also not something that we want, is it? Because if we removed it from the array, I mean, we do want to remove it from the array, but we want it to move. We want it to move to that location. So how do we get it to move to that location? Well, how is it on our big... How is it on there right now? Let's see here. This is all coworker. This is the 3D space. We want to go to the 2D space. Place settings, utilities, viewports, main game, 3D, audio, ambulance, action button. No. We want... Maybe our screen? Maybe it's screen. Viewport. Yeah, okay. Building base. That's where our building base is, but where is our detection being utilized? So I wonder if there's a quick way to find that out. There's our script resources. That's where we're gonna actually, well, that's layer switching. What is layer switching? The detection... I don't know why I did this. I wonder if this is an older one? This seems to be the thing, right? Old House 1 has building base on there. That does nothing. That's literally nothing. And then layer switching is on there. Maybe it is on there. Alright, I'm going to continue trying to figure this out. We will go to ad break in now. See y'all in 3 minutos. So the reason that this is here is because this is the first house every single time, we want this to be off. Because no matter what, it's going to be taken over. So that's why the layer switching is there. Okay. That still doesn't explain why. And or how. Oh, here it is. Close proximity. Okay. Alright. So what are you? Proximity, Shapecast 2D. So what happens... Control V. Alright. What happens when there's another close proximity?
Sound.
Oh, damn. They're picking the same thing. Well, they're not picking the same thing, but... Yeah. Old House 2. Which one are you? Dang it. So that's 1, that's 2. Look how big it is. The fuck? Is it like here? It's being weird. So anyway, it's doing both at the same time, which is what we don't want. We don't want that. So what we need to do is close proximity. This is Shapecast 2D, where we only want the 1, right? Oh, that house is probably this right here. We only want the 1, right? And then once it selects the house, we turn off like we have all the close proximities turned off, and then we turn this one off when it leaves, and then turns the other one on. You kind of get what I'm saying? So like, this is off right now, so I don't think it will work. Hold on, let's see. Let's see. Let's see if we'll get 2 on the bottom. We do get 2 on the bottom. see how these are now. Look at all those. Anyway, before, the reason I could just keep doing that forever, I used to, if it tries to double pick, it will just crash the game. So now at least it doesn't crash the game, because we don't want it crashing the game. Well, one, interestingly enough, it's a lot bigger. I don't know why it's so big. Oh, I know why it's so big. Hold on. That's what she said. Max results 10. See, max results 10 here. So let's actually go ahead and, if max results 10, let's go ahead and just 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, not 89, 10, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then it's, oops, target 4, then target 5, target, I need to try to prevent me capitalizing. That's honestly one of the biggest things, is that I want to capitalize everything. Target 8, target 9, target 10. Okay. So what we need is to this be disabled. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That actually works. So it's set, it is disabled. So then it spreads, enables the new one, and disables the old one. Or do we need to disable and then enable the new one? I'm worried that if we disable the new one before it transfers over, it won't transfer over. You know what I mean? Let's look. Let's renew you.
Sound.
Why is it like that? Oh, it's disabled, so it's white. Oh. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interestingly enough too though, if we only got I think the get collider is just, I think it's whatever happens to be closest first is 0, 1, 2. So it always picks the 3 closest things. We may finagle this a little bit. I don't see why not. Because I don't, even with the 3, even when we spammed it, the other one before, it's not like it stopped being it. You know what I mean? At least I don't think. Let's enable it again. Because why not?
Sound.
Yeah, those are the two. Took a lot of hits, but I managed to get through it. Like, we still got it. I don't think it really matters. I think for performance I think it would be easier to just put it down to 3 as we did before. I think the reason I'm even considering 10 is because then you get the whole package of what's in the parameter instead of just the 3 closest. First things first, let's figure out the whole issue here. Close proximity, transform. This should be 2. There we go. Yeah, that was the issue. For some reason it was 4. Don't know why. So this one being able to... Let's go ahead and do that. This one being able to go back to the first one or spread down to here, I think it's reasonable. This, I think, is a good range for right now. We might have other ones have bigger ranges. We'll see. So that fixed the range issue. Enable. Let's do attacked dot enable equals true. Do I need to specify what's... Maybe attacked dot shape cast 2D or close proximity? Let's see. Close proximity equals true. Is that a thing? I don't know what any of this is, but you're doing great. Thanks, Melon. I spent the last like 3.5 hours just catching up, being like, what was I doing? Because I haven't done this in 4 months. So I kind of was just like, what was I doing? What was this again? Who am I? How are you doing, Melon? Hopefully well. I'm trying to find a way to turn this guy on, but not in that kind of way, while then turning the old one off, because I want it to like hop between houses. What did Idealist say on his last game dev stream? I say such stuff during game dev days. I can't help it. Game dev just does that to a man. But how y'all doing? How you? I keep thinking I don't know why. I think it's Sunday, even though it's Tuesday. All right, let's give it a shot. Let's see. Sound. Ooh. Okay. It clicked the right thing, caused a problem. Close proximity dot enable equals true. Is that a thing? Homesick for the rest of the week? No, what happened? Did you get a cold? Did you get one of those colds that's floating around that's really bad? Hopefully you didn't get bird flu, did you? I know you work with animals. So I really hope you didn't. Side effects from meds? Okay. Okay. That still sucks. But I've heard very bad things about the bird flu. I've heard really, and listen, I'm not, might not be geneticist, epidemiologist, but I know enough about that kind of stuff to know that species hopping is really bad, like really, really bad. Where you can barely stand. Oh no. Well, hopefully you're nice and horizontal, and you have fluffy, adorable dogs to snuggle up to, and a nice blanket, and some food, and have a protocol that any pet that is eating a raw diet, we have to wear gloves no matter what. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good rule. I'm glad your place that you are working at is taking it so seriously. As one of my biggest gripes in places that I have worked being them not taking care of, like, not treating that stuff really seriously, I'm happy to see that at least your place is. It was that way with COVID. Mostly COVID. It was mostly COVID, now that I think about it. Like, multiple places that I worked at just didn't take it seriously, and I'm like, I hate that. Protect yourselves. Exactly. Protect yourselves. It ain't worth getting that sick. Like, it's actually not, it's not even worth even getting sick. Just wear the proper PPE. Wear it. All right, let's see if this one did it. Nope. All right, let's try just enable then. Nope. It doesn't like enable. Invalid assignment of property or key enable with value type bool on a base object type static body 2D. What? Static body 2D. Oh. Okay. I get it. Okay, I think I understand it. Now, what if I were to get their close proximity? What if instead of collider, I gave it a shapecast 2D? Maybe. Okay. Well, first things first. Let's bring this back down to. I spent a whole 2 minutes changing that. There you go. All right. So if I were to be like, okay, we're just gonna do it for these three. This one should be, okay, disabled, transform to, why did that one work? And then, that little weird Venn diagram there, but that works. Right, we're gonna get rid of that. But instead of get collider, we're gonna get shape cast (2D). Is that something I can do? No. That is not something that I can do. Okay. Then I guess what I would do then, get collider. And then maybe work backwards a little bit. Like, we would pick random and then variable close proximity equals attacked dot shapecast 2D. How do I get it? How do I pull it? Shapecast 2D. Maybe? And then I can do like close proximity equals what's the word I'm looking for? Enabled. Why don't you like this? Proximity is not declared in the current scope. It is declared. It is attacked such quick boo. But it's not. How do I get you on? Shapecast 2D. It's a class similar to collision objects. So the thing is with this other one, it's a collider, right? It's the collision mask that we turn on and off to make it so that it's not able to be utilized more than once. So we did that. We made it so that, granted, this is all we did last time, but one, we made it so that we can't double up, and two, we made it so that it doesn't crash if it does try to double up. But before we move to the point of, oh, we want to make it so that the previous one can't be chosen forever either, we need to make it so it's able to move from one house to another. And the best thing that we can do is have this all in one kind of like code that we just put on everything, and then just make it so that when it chooses the target, attacked, maybe attacked get, what if we did get attacked get collider shape, count, mask value, point, angle, canvas, global mouse position, local mouse position. We don't need mouse position. Viewport, no. Children, I certainly hope not. Groups, index, last exclusive window, multiplayer, authority. There's a lot. No surprise, this is literally everything that you can get. Tree, viewport, window. Get class? I already know the class. Right now it's pulling the collider. Does it need to get the collider is the thing. I think we did collider just because it is the thing that is interacting, that we're turning on and off the collision. Right? So now what we need is to get from that collider a new identifier that is this. So we don't really need the collider? Because right now we're on the static body. We are on the collision here. Let's say we are here. So we need. Oh, could I just do that? Because now the collision sees the proximity. This get. No, not quite. Did it mess anything up here that I did that? Doesn't look it. Because we have collision, we have the collider. We are essentially here, right? And then, are we? No, we're on the static body. We're on the static body. Crap. There we go. So proximity is on static body. So we see the collision, but we want to also be able to see like, hey, we have a shape cast 2D that needs to be enabled. How do we do that? Can we do shape cast 2D equals enabled? What, you don't like that? Oh, shape cast 2D. What are you doing? Why did you put two 2Ds? 4Ds, four double Ds. Okay. Cannot assign a new value to a constant. Set. Enabled? Process. Thread deferred indexed. It's not under anything. That's the problem. If I knew if it was like in the collision mask, then it's like set collider to whatever, right? Set reset physics interpolation. Sure, that makes sense. I know those words. Set closest collision to safe fractions. Set mouse button left. Joy axis. My joy is full axis, I guess. I don't even know what that means. Is an ancestor of? Edited scene. I could just make someone an ancestor or something else. Mini message. I could play a MIDI keyboard through Godot. Let's make it extra problematic. Collision mask, notify local, transform, deferred thread group, display folded, editable instance, multiplayer, physics process. Physics process. It's like, I'm guessing that's down here. Is it just not a good idea to set this to enabled up here? Maybe it's this. Maybe it's dot enabled. Maybe. Probably not. We could give it a shot. Let's give it a shot.
Sound.
Immediately explodes my computer. Yep, there it is. Invalid access to property or key enabled on base object type of shapecast 2D. Well, it knows shapecast 2D is there, right? Shapecast 2D does exist. The issue here is that I want it to property shape, property enabled. Equals enabled. Dot enabled equals true. What about that? Is that enough? Maybe? Did I kind of do it?
Sound.
Did I kind of do it?
Sound.
Nope. Welcome to Game Dev, when you don't know what you're doing. Well, I certainly don't. Property is enabled with the value type bool on a base object of type of shapecast 2D. Okay, so, right, this is... Can I, like, just do enabled equals true here? I'm pretty sure this would not be good. Because I think that would just disable the damn static body. Well, there isn't really an enable on the static body, now that I look at it. Let's give it a shot. Why not? What do I have to lose besides everything?
Sound. Sound.
Oh! Holy shit. It actually worked. What the hell? Oh. Enabled on. Enable on. All right, in that case, then what we're gonna do is, then we're gonna enabled equals false. Let's see if it did it.
Sound. Sound.
There's so many. House 3, they're just jumping between each other. And then apparently 4 also got stuck in there. Why are y'all able to still jump between 2 and 3? Which one of y'all ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing? Enabled equals false. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it does turn it off. Maybe, what if we go one more back? No. Because the enabled equals false isn't being attached to, like, attacked or anything like that. At least I don't think that's what's happening.
Sound. Sound.
Okay, so that got moved to that one. All right, let's add this to Old House 4. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Let's make sure that your transform is not crazy. It's not. Cool. Love it. Still don't know why. It happened. Okay. So. Okay. See? There it is. It chose itself. Why did it choose itself? It shouldn't have chosen itself. It should have removed. Did it remove? Set the value to false. It didn't set its own value to false, huh? At least from the looks of it. Let's see here. It doesn't turn itself off either. So it's able to work. It works only kind of. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, it doesn't spread. It's still stuck. It's still stuck around Old House 1. So it gets the target. Maybe we do need to increase it to 10. Wait a minute. Let's increase it by 1. Just 1. Nothing crazy. I have a sneaking suspicion here that it's total. Meaning this array is only able to hold 4 total. It doesn't refresh with new targets. Which in that case, the target list here needs to be not 10, but every possible combination, which would be 36, I think? And then it would proceed to do that. Let's see here. Let's see if it goes even further then. Even further beyond! Alright, first one. Perfect. Okay, that one. 3, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, 4, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay. It doesn't move to any other house. Why? So increase of the targets didn't do jack nothing. Didn't do jack rabbit. Jack Horton. Michael Myers. Then turn off, then pass, and then we hit the spread again. And then the spread. See, that's the thing here. What I want from the spread is we get the target of the 3, but it didn't move, did it? It doesn't consider itself changed locations. Why? We've turned off the previous one. Okay. We've turned on the one that you went to, and we turned off the one that you were coming from. But now then we hit it again. It didn't refresh. It didn't change again. When we hit it again, the new location was still it still has its old array. It didn't really update it, which is weird. Because when we were messing it with it before, not even like turning it on, turning it off, etc., and we just threw it on houses 4, 3, 2, etc., they were hopping around just fine. So why did, after enabling the close proximities and then turning off the base one, create such a problem? Hopefully that didn't do anything. Was that it? That shouldn't have been it. I don't even know what those were. I think those were just indents.
Sound.
See, that one still works fine. It turns off the old one and moves to the new one. It then chooses itself, which means it already has a problem where this, it should have moved to the new location. Let's see what happens. Because that's enable on, right? So let's see what happens here.
Sound.
Because I suspect I'm not doing what I think I'm doing. So get out of here. Shoot. NVIDIA overlay. I don't need you right now. Go away. Thank you. Okay. So if I go back here, this is still on. This is still on. Why? Input. Do you have disable? Because if this is accurate, right? If this is accurate, all these should be disabled. When I look at this, that's off, off, off. Why is this off? And this is on. This is still on. So I'm confused why this is still on when it is off. It just looks on, but it's not really on. So why? Why? That's just basically, and if you're wondering what mostly the game dev experience for me, it's pretty much just me yelling why at my computer for 4 hours. Remember, y'all voted for this. I missed this. We're both at fault here. Okay, so it did turn off. Maybe it just didn't update this.
Sound.
See, it's automatically off, but if I were to NVIDIA, I would uninstall you if it meant. And then I boop. Still goes to there. Still won't cut itself off. And then it will just like ping pong between 2, 3, and 4. But it won't go back to the original. But the reason it won't go back to the original is because I already have a layer switching thing on the old static body of the first one, of which already sets the collision layer to 1 off the rip, or takes away the layer value of 1. It brings it to 0, meaning that it won't ever be chosen. But if it wasn't for that, it would be doing that. So this one, if attacked doesn't equal null, AKA, it exists. If it exists, then we set what we've chosen, collision layer, 1 to false. We change the color, and we print attack, and then enable. We'll make it enabled. And then we turn the old one to false. We shut the door behind ourselves. That's what we want. It's polite. Let me see something. Let me see if the color is varying.
Sound.
Let's turn these invisible for right now. It's still there. It's still going to be doing stuff, but... Okay. Yeah, it's still... So it is selecting it. It is doing what it's supposed to be doing. We can visually see it change. But it won't move beyond that, surprisingly enough. Let's see here. Which one of y'all is 5? That is 5. Okay, so 5 has everything that we need as far as collisions and all that other jazz. But it doesn't have... But it's not moving over. Why is it not moving over? Is it because we don't have a collision? No, we didn't have close proximity before either, so... There's no reason for it to. Maybe we should give it. Let's give it to him. Let's see what happens. Okay.
Sound.
Yeah, nothing, literally nothing changed. Which is fine in major air quotes. It's not fine. When we increased the target array, it did nothing. It's still counting itself as not moved into the next one. But how? We're kind of cheating it in the sense that everything has a close proximity. And what we're doing is that it's just only one is on at a time. So we turn one on, it chooses a place, it turns it on, it then turns the old one off, and that's it. We should probably color 100, the layer switch. Ready, modulate. Equals color 110. We'll just do like that. Because it comes in. We can set it so that it's just like, oh, it's begun, but this at least keeps it clear, like this is pre. And then it just bounces off each other. So when there's nothing, let's see here, because we are turning it on though, because none of these are enabled. And when none of these are enabled, such as this one, and I were to just refresh it, nothing happens. Right? Yeah, nothing happens. So because nothing happens, it does give me the impression that it can't interact with any of them. So what that gives the impression to me is that I'm not really turning them on. Well, I am turning them on. They highlight. And I am turning this off because they unhighlight. Right?
Sound.
God, look at that. Hold on. Let me fix that. Transform. We'll make this like 1. And then we'll make whatchamacallit? You on. Refresh.
Sound.
So that's on. That one we're gonna... No, that's about accurate. So with this, spacebar, that turns off, the other one turns on. Okay. So why... I think the issue now lies with... It doesn't reset. It isn't bringing in a new one. Like, it's not bringing in new array. It's still using the old array, and it's also not cutting itself off. So that means, for whatever reason, I'm hitting this, it's going to a new thing, but it's not disabling. It is disabling itself, but it's disabling itself only here in old one. It's not moving over. Oh. It's not moving over. So we didn't really move it. All we did is that we turned the other one on and itself off. And then we hit it again. That is turning itself on, and then it still sees itself as the first house. So how do we make it understand that we want it to consider itself in a different place? Because I kind of want... That's why I have all these different proximities, right? We have proximities with all the same script in it, because I want it to think that it's in all these places at once. It's in every house, it's in every collision, etc. But it's only active one at a time, where it turns parts of itself off and part of itself on, but it knows that it's everywhere, instead of it just thinking it's in the first house. Because why is it thinking still that it's in the first house? Process delta is called every frame. So if it's called every frame, it should now see that it's in a new place, the old self is off, and it's now ready to take on, when I hit the spacebar, a new set of colliders, a new set of targets are now gathered. So why is it not refreshing to a new... Why is it still sticking to its old self? I don't know. Let's turn it all red, baby. Yeah. And we saw that it was with the discoloration, it's still choosing. It's still going to these new locations. It's still changing the value to 1. But is it? If it's changing the value 1 to false, it shouldn't be being able to choose itself again. Or maybe it always was. Oh, wait a minute. This is if it equals null. Or it doesn't equal null. So because it doesn't equal null, none of this happens. Except for the 1, right? Let's try something. Let's try it.
Sound. Music.
Interesting. How did I manage to do that? Okay, so for those that didn't quite see what happened, so what happens is whenever I hit it, it will select 1, it will turn off what our original one is for a split for 1 frame, and then it will turn itself back on. I don't know why. But then it chooses a new one that wasn't there before, or aka it does replace itself, and then it does it again. Oh, it's not, see, it's not selecting itself anymore. Yeah. See, it doesn't show up anymore. And so it's not showing up anymore. Wow. I don't... What happens if we do it twice? Let's see what happens. See what happens. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. Let's do it twice. Okay, it's off. It's okay. We're back to problems, and it's able to click forever. I have no idea. But you know what? That sounds like next week's problem. This game is gonna take forever with us doing this once a week, but we'll see. Hopefully, I can get these projects done, and then we'll be able to kick back up to 5 stream a week thing again. We'll see. At the rate things are going, everything's going to take forever. But we're still going. We're still moving. So thank you all for joining me here today. It was wonderful having you. I've missed this, just like Stockholm Syndrome, I suppose. Just nothing but pain, frustration, and the absolute joy of making something. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, and I will see y'all for Saturday in Voices of the Void. All right. Take care. Have a good week. See ya.